Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everybody to the November 16th, 2022 Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. Pursuant to the Open Public Meeting Law, notice of the within meeting as published in the Record, the Herald News, and the Clifton Journal, and then the annual notice on November 24th, 2021. Copies of this agenda were mailed to the Record, the Herald News, and the Clifton Journal, and a copy of the agenda was filed with the city clerk and posted on the main bulletin board in City Hall 5 days prior to the date of this meeting. On all applications listed on the agenda, formal action may be taken that the within announcement shall be incorporated in the minutes of this meeting. All applicants are hereby advised that the testimony taken before this board is being tape recorded. In the event that any applicant desires to take an appeal from the action of the board, a stenographic record of the proceedings is available and may be obtained through the office of the zoning officer upon payment of the required fee. Roll call, Mr. Pogorelic.
Commissioner Jaskol.
Here.
Commissioner Silva.
Present.
Commissioner Gurkhoff.
Here.
Commissioner Soshan.
Here.
Commissioner Molnar.
Here.
Commissioner DeStefano.
Here.
Commissioner Fucus.
Here.
Vice Chairman Scorziello.
Here.
Chairman Zucchino.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
And before I go over this evening's agenda, if you have any cell phones, please either turn them off or put them on vibrate. If you do need to take a call, if you would step outside the chambers, we would greatly appreciate it. When I say your name, just raise your hand, let me know you're here. Under remanded hearings, John Rader, 817-825 Clifton Avenue is continued without a date. Continued hearings, TFJ Hazel LLC, 252 Hazel Street. Thank you. 522 Valley Estates LLC, 522 Valley Road is continued to December 7th, 2022. 1041 Paulson Avenue LLC, 1041 Paulson Avenue. Thank you. Walbury Properties LLC, 1-9 Walnut Street. Thank you. EMB 561 LLC, 561 Van Houten Avenue. It's continued to December 12th, but I believe we have a letter. Dear Liana, unfortunately, Mr. Rigg will not have the site plan completed by November 2nd for our scheduled December 7th meeting. Can we please reschedule for January 18th, 2023? So, Ms. Bocata, can we do EMB 561 Van Houten to January 18th, 2023?
Yes.
And 833 Clifton Ave Partners LLC, 833 Clifton Ave. Thank you. Under new hearings, Maria Quintero, 9 Sheridan Ave. And Mocha Yemen Corporation, 441 Crooks Ave. Okay. I think we're going to start with the new hearings tonight first so we can get them out of the way because the other ones will take more time. So in the new hearings, Maria Quintero, 9 Sheridan Ave, please come forward. Any interested parties to this application, please come forward. Again, any interested parties to this application, please come forward. Seeing none, please. That's fine, that's fine, perfect. If you can just hit the button, it should light up green. Yep. There you go. If you could state your name and address for the record, please. Your name and address for the record, please.
Okay, Maria Quintero, 9 Sheridan Avenue, Clifton, New Jersey.
Okay, sir, maybe you'll be speaking too. Would you like to, your name and
Daniel
address?
Casabona, 9 Sheridan Ave, Clifton.
Okay, please, if you could please stand, Mr. Pogorelic, we'll swear you in.
Stand up.
Also,
Please
you-
raise your right hand. In this matter pending before the Zoning Board of Adjustment in the city of Clifton, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Please be seated. Tell us what you would like to do.
I want to open shakes, protein shakes, a place, and vitamin supplements.
Okay, so it's an Herbalife, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, the board has seen these before, and it's shakes and drinks and stuff like that,
Yes.
correct? But there's no cooking on the premise, correct?
I'm sorry?
No cooking on the premise,
Oh,
correct?
no cooking. It's only shakes, protein shakes and teas.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner DeStefano?
ma'am, tell us about the hours of operation and how many employees you'll have.
No employees. It's me, and I'm planning to open in the mornings during my kids stay in the school, so it's 6 to 1 p.m.
6 a.m.
6 a.m. to 1 p.m.
to 1 p.m.
And would that be 7 days a week, or how many days a week?
No, till Saturdays.
Monday through
Monday
Saturday?
to Saturday, yes.
Monday through Saturday, okay. Any other questions from the board?
Chairman,
Commissioner Silva?
we have one of these herbal lights in Botany Village, and the front of the building, the window, is covered, so nobody could see inside. Is that going to happen with yours?
In my building, nobody's gonna know I am there until I make an invitation. The building doesn't have windows outside, nothing, just the door, and I have to invite people to know I am there.
But the front, the window of your
I don't
building
have-
is going to be blocked. You can't.
No, I don't have windows.
She doesn't have any
Oh, there's
windows.
no window. All right, sorry,
It's
I
all brick. It's all brick with a
misunderstood
door,
you.
solid door.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Fukas?
that whole building is 6,000 square feet. How much are you occupying? Like a small area?
I have a sign company, it's in the back,
Oh.
and the front area is gonna be the kitchen and an office for her there. It's about 1,000 square feet, 800,000 square feet.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Molnar?
just to follow up on I know there's no windows, I've seen the building. Will there be any signage saying, with the Herbalife, any signs?
Herbalife does not allow signage to say Herbalife.
Okay, thank you very much.
I am independent distributor. It's me. I have to be responsible for what I give it to the clients, but it's under my name. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Not, pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Molnar?
I'd like to make a motion to approve this application.
I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Molnar. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chairman Scorziello. And can we just put on for stipulation that there's no cooking on the premises? Is that okay, Commissioner Molnar?
With no cooking on the premises.
No cooking.
Roll call, Mr. Pogarelli?
This is a motion to approve the application at hand. Commissioner Gurkoff,
Yes.
Commissioner Sochan,
Yes.
Commissioner Molnar,
Yes.
Commissioner DeStefano,
Yes.
Commissioner Fukas,
Yes, with stipulation.
Vice Chairman Scorziello,
Yes.
Chairman Zakino.
Yes.
7 affirmative votes, the motion carries and the application is granted.
Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I put this up?
No, you can leave that on. Thank you. Okay, next application, Mocha Yemen Corporation, 441 Crooks Ave. Please come forward. Any interested parties to this application, please come forward. Again, any interested parties to this application, please come forward. Seeing none, appearance of counsel for the record, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners Alfred Acquaviva on behalf of the applicant, Mocha Yemen Corporation.
And how many witnesses this evening you have testifying?
I have 2 witnesses. I have Mr. Al-Mukhtar, who's the architect, and I have the manager of the business.
Okay. All right, so maybe we can give their name and address and we can swear them in.
Sure. Good evening, Nasser Al-Mukhtar, A-L-M-U-K-H-T-A-R.
And sir?
Good evening, Wael Ali, that's W-A-E-L-L, and the last name is Ali.
If you could please stand, Mr. Pogarelli will swear you in.
Okay, please raise your right hand. In this matter pending before the Zoning Board of Adjustment in the City of Clifton, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman, Commissioners, as you're aware, this is the property located at 441 Crooks Avenue. The applicant is actually a coffee shop. This property, to the best of my knowledge, has been used as a restaurant for a substantial period of time. The current use is even less intrusive as it's a coffee shop, and as the applicant, the manager will explain, pastries and that sort of things are being served. What the applicant specifically is seeking to do is to the rear of the building, there is an open area where he serves, when the weather is well, people sit out there and he serves. What he's seeking to do is to basically close that area with windows so that that space can be operational throughout the winter months and the cold months as well. So I have Mr. Al-Mukhtar here, who has designed the architectural plans, which you all obviously reviewed. I'm going to let him go and explain specifically what we're
Okay,
seeking to
and
do.
we'll accept his qualifications. He's been in front of this board before.
Thank you,
As long as
Mr.
your license is up to, is it renewed and up to date?
Yes, current
Okay.
license in good standing.
We'll accept
you.
your
Thank you, Mr.
qualifications.
Chairman. So this is, again, 441 Crooks Ave in Clifton.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner
you
Mulner?
just move the microphone a little closer.
Yes, sure.
Thank you.
Is this better?
Yes.
Okay, so this is an existing two-story structure. The first floor, as mentioned, has been used as a restaurant before. Now it's a cafe. The second floor overhangs towards the rear over a patio. So the first floor is smaller than the second floor. The proposal is to enclose that area. When the weather is nice, they would open those windows. It would be fully glass enclosure. When the weather is nice, they can open it, but during winter time, they can close those windows and they can still have the feel of an outdoor seating, but it would be inside. So basically, there is an existing parking. It's striped. We're going to restripe it. The enclosure would not reduce the number of parking spaces because it's already covered from the second floor. There are columns there, structural columns, so it's not reducing the number of parking spaces. The use, as mentioned, is less intrusive than the restaurant that was there before. Again, this is located in the M3 district, PDO2 overlay. The existing first floor is about 1,000 square feet, and then the proposed enclosure is on the second page. It's about 17 by 22 square feet, 17 by 22 feet. So that's basically it in a nutshell. I'm trying to be brief here. The interior is not being changed. It's going to remain the same. There's an existing handicap bathroom. The basement is to remain the same also, basically storage and refrigeration and what have you.
You're going to leave the 3 posts in the middle of the room like that, or are you going to put a header in there, or because it looks like you just have posts there? They're going to be hanging?
Those posts are existing to remain because they're structural. We don't want to move them. So they are to remain. That's correct.
Any questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Mulner?
Sir, is this space just going to be enclosed or is it going to be conditioned? Is it going to have heat?
It would have heat, yes.
It will have heat?
Yes,
Okay. Thank you.
sure.
Any other questions from the board? Did you get a chance to look at our planner's report?
Yes.
Any comments on his general comments?
Mr. Chairman, I actually have the manager here. I think he would probably answer these questions a little bit.
Oh, okay, all right, that's fine.
Because I don't see, this really isn't technical questions.
Well, there's signage. Are you planning on doing any other signage?
Well, yeah, he was going to testify that the existing signage that's there, that's what he's using. He's not using anything else, but I'll have him testify.
Okay, all right, then any other questions for the architect? Seeing none, Mr. Aqua, will you?
Wael Ali, I believe he was sworn already.
Can you bring the mic to you?
Mr. Ali, what's your current position with Mocha Yemen Corporation?
I'm the manager.
Okay, so briefly summarize for the board exactly what the facility is, what your business is.
So we're a Yemeni coffee shop. We import coffee straight from Yemen. We do everything authentic and everything at the store. We roast everything there. We just serve pastries, coffee. We try to build an environment where families could come and enjoy, a good cup of coffee and just have a good time, that's it.
You heard the chairman make a comment a couple minutes ago about the, giving some details on the signage. What are the signs that you're using in front of the building right now?
So we just have our name in the front, Kahwa House, and on the side where it was previously the old businesses had the signage was, we didn't add any extra signage or anything like that.
Okay, so we're not adding in any extra signage
No, no.
whatsoever? It's
No, no.
existing, whatever's there is existing?
Whatever's there is there, yeah.
Okay.
Now, on the second floor of the building, there is a residential dwelling, right?
Yes.
One apartment?
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, but it is a residential, it's not
It
a
is,
commercial
yes.
use, right? Now, you'd indicated before, because one of the concerns from the planner was the impact upon that particular residence. You had indicated to me before when we were speaking that that resident is actually a customer of your restaurant,
Yeah,
correct?
he comes every morning, yeah.
Okay. Has he expressed any type of complaints to you?
No, we have a great relationship with them, you know. Anything they need, we'll help them out. And it's a great relationship, there's no issues.
Now, in terms of the parking, is all of the parking allocated for the commercial space for your restaurant or your pastry shop?
Well, everything it is for the restaurant, so,
And the resident parks on the street?
yeah.
Okay. Why don't you summarize for the board your hours of operation?
So we open from 7 to 11, and on Fridays and Saturdays, we're open from 7 to 1 a.m.
And as far as the trash and refuse removal, there's an area in the back for that, right?
Yeah, so when you go straight ahead, there's 2 trees. We put them right there so they don't interfere with parking in any way, shape, or form.
And how often is it removed?
It's 3 days a week.
And you do it privately with a private trash contractor?
Yeah, we have a company that comes pick them up. I forget the name. It starts with a G.
Gata. And it's 3 times a week, you said? And you understand that you may have to do it more often as the business would require, right?
Plus, as the business grow, as the things will grow, we're willing to make any modifications to keep everything in good health and standard.
Okay. And how many parking spaces do you have?
We have, I believe, 8, 9, about 11 or 12.
Now, there's 8 on the side, correct?
3 on the side and then 3 on the back.
And you're not adding on, you're not going into that area at all, those parking spaces remain, right?
No, all those parking spots remain. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, no further questions.
And what about, in the planner's report, also about trash and refuse removal? How does that happen?
I'm sorry?
Trash, garbage removal?
Yeah,
How
we
does
have
that
a
happen?
company that comes picks them up 3 days a week.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
We have a company that comes pick up the trash 3 times a week.
And what is that normally? How many times a week, or?
3 times a week. We have them on Saturdays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays.
Okay. And hopefully it's not before 7 a.m.
Huh?
Hopefully it's not before 7 a.m.
No, they pick it up, yeah.
Before 7 a.m.
No.
Not before 7
No.
a.m. Okay. Any questions for the manager? Mr. Graviano, any questions?
The refuse area isn't shown on the plan.
Yes, that's correct. It's just a small container towards the rear of the site. It's a 2-yard container. And actually, the company that picks up, it's right across the street, Gata. It's in Patterson on East Railway. So they come in as needed, basically. They're right there. But we didn't show it. It's just a small container, though.
Real quick on that issue, Mr. Graviano, Mr. Commissioner. You were talking about possibly building a section in the back to cover that trash, correct?
Yeah,
The container, correct?
Yes, that's what we're...
And you understand that if you do that, you're going to have to apply for all the necessary permits to do that as well, right? Okay. But you haven't done that yet? You haven't started that yet?
No, not yet, no.
Okay, but that'll be a stipulation on this, if we do approve this, that you would need to do that.
Yeah, it's not going to be taking up a parking space either. It's a separate area in the back there between the areas that line the left side of the building and in the back. So it's not taking up an extra space or anything either.
That's fine, that's fine.
Well,
As long as,
through the chair, I don't see how it's possible. You know, I would prefer the loss of a space to have a dedicated trash enclosure of a durable material that screens it from public view.
no, I believe he's saying it's not going to take a parking space away.
No, I'm just saying it's not physically possible to do that. I would rather them put it in like where they show those parallel spaces and show the trash enclosure, rather it be just a free-for-all out there.
We could keep it as it is, as a dumpster, Mr. Chairman. And my point was that if he decides to do anything to possibly maybe enclose it a little bit, if he does that in the future, obviously that would require another permit process and whatever else is necessary. But as it is right now, there's a dumpster in the back, and the gated company comes in 3 times a week and removes it.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner DeStefano.
So I just heard, from you that you wanted it enclosed. Now, Mr. Graviano's talking about a parking spot and leaving it open. What do we want? Okay, explain it to me then.
Please. Hit the mic, please.
Sorry, Chairman.
It's okay.
I was saying that there's no way to have the trash enclosure in the rear of the site and it not impede parking spaces. My comment is I'd rather them take away one of the parallel parking spaces on the left-hand side, dedicate that to the refuse area with a durable enclosure so it's not visible from public view. So
Yeah,
instead of 8 spaces, you'd have 7 spaces. I don't have a problem with that.
All
because
right,
I
but you
think-
want it, okay, again, do we want it enclosed? We want it enclosed, right?
I mean, that's our
Right.
ordinance. We want
Right.
them in closer, they're not
Yeah,
out.
so we want one parking spot with it enclosed, correct?
We don't have a problem with that. That's fine.
Yeah. I mean, we need to enclose it. So you were talking about you can enclose it without losing a parking spot, but our planner's
Yeah,
saying that that's
it-
impossible.
Well, I mean, again, it could have been, listen, I'm not an engineer, but when I was there, I could see where the trash was. Just visually, it looks like there's enough space there between where the spaces come in to the left and the spaces are in the back. Obviously, your planner believes we can't do it that way, so that's fine. Well, if the board is okay with it, we'll take a spot away in the back and enclose the
Yeah.
enclose the dumpster there. That's fine.
Right. And I know that there's no residences in the back there. I get it, the zone it's in, but we would like to have the dumpsters enclosed.
That's fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're perfect.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from the board?
Mr. Chair.
Dr. Aquaviva, would you like to make any closing statement?
I don't want to delay the board. The board has a busy evening. I think the board thoroughly familiar with the application, with the property. We think it fits perfectly, and with the little tweaks that we have from the board, I think we can get it. It would be a very good approval.
Okay, thank you. Pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Fukis.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this application. If you remember, this building, 5 years ago, was dilapidated. It looked like it should have been torn down, and I don't know if I met board, but they did a beautiful job.
Can we put a
With the
stipulation about?
stipulation of closing
dumpster?
the trash container, yeah.
I have a motion by Commissioner Fuchs with the stipulation of the dumpster and enclosed. Do I have a second?
Second, with the
Second by Commissioner
stipulations.
Gurkoff. Roll call, Mr. Pogarelic.
This is a motion to approve the application. Commissioner Gurkoff,
Yes, with the stipulations.
Commissioner Soshan,
Yes.
Commissioner Molnar,
Yes.
Commissioner DeStefano,
Yes, with the stipulation.
Commissioner Fukis.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Scorziello.
Yes.
Chairman Zakino.
Yes.
7 affirmative votes, the motion carries and the application is granted.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go on to continued hearings. TFJ Hazel LLC, 252 Hazel Street, please come forward. Any interested parties to this application, please, can you sign in? Rhonda, if you have a yellow pad, and we can have the interested party sign in.
I have the pad.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, appearance of counsel for the record, please.
Merrill Goncher, Sills, Cummis, and Gross.
Alec Garrison, Klein and Zaretsky, 1135 Clifton Avenue, appearing for the applicant.
Okay.
Co-counsel.
Ms. Gonchar, where did we leave off last?
When we were last before you, I believe in August, we had presented some revisions to our plans. We had reintroduced some of our consultants. We had not gotten to our planner. This evening, however, we have recalled our architect, Mr. Minervini, to put one change in the record. After listening to the comments from the board, we have eliminated all dens from the project, and we just want the architect to testify to that, so that we started with 40 dens, went down to 32 dens, and are now at 0. Mr. Minervini was previously qualified as an architect in the field of architecture and sworn.
We still accept it, yes.
Your license is still in good standing, Frank? It's been a couple of months.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. All right, can you just explain to the board the most recent changes that have been made since our last appearance, and if you have any exhibits to identify those? Frank Minervini, do you want to put your name of the company on the record just for?
Sure. Frank Minervini, Minervini, from MVMK Architecture, Hoboken, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Very simply, I think, and Merrill has already described it, your drawings have not changed. What I testified to at the last hearing was a reduction down to 8 dens, and those dens were reduced in size relative to the initial application to 6 by 6. Now we are proposing to remove all dens from the 54 units, so from 8 to 0. And if you remember, those dens were 6 feet by 6 feet, and we based that on one of the town's redevelopment plans. We thought that would be accepted. Obviously, we heard the board's preference for no dens, so now those 36 square feet will, in each case, just be brought back into the apartments. So the living room gets bigger, or the kitchen area gets bigger. No change otherwise. And just to remind everyone, of the 54 units, 30 are 2 bedrooms, and the remaining 24 are 1 bedrooms, and now there are no dens with any of them. That's the extent of the revisions. Nothing else has changed relative to my last testimony, presentation.
Any questions from the board? Seeing none. Any interested parties have any questions on this gentleman's testimony, the architect's testimony? As of right now, that's what we're going to take testimony. I'll have you do closing statements when we're at that point.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner DeStefano?
So, again, what was the reasoning of taking out these 8 dens? Give us the explanation for that.
Purely, we felt the tenor of the board, that there was some pushback even of those 8, from those 8. So in the interest of getting a project getting closer to an approval, we removed them.
Okay, so that was one of the board's concerns now in which you addressed. So there was 8 dens, now there's 0 dens on this proposed plan now, correct?
Exactly.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Again, any interested parties have a question for the architect? Okay, Ms. Gonchar?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me just As a matter of history, I don't want to take a lot of time with administration, but this matter had initially been carried to October 19 and was carried again. Just for the board's information, we did renotice at that time, although we weren't required to under the law. So the public was noticed before this hearing. The only other item that I would mention is that there had been correspondence, before we move on to the planner, there had been correspondence from New Jersey Turnpike Authority. You have copies of that. They had comments which they had apparently neglected to provide to the board or to myself when they had first reviewed the application. This is because we have frontage along the Parkway. In terms of changes, the only thing that they've asked of us and that we would propose is a fence along the property line with the Parkway property. They had asked for a 7-foot fence. We explained to them that under your ordinance, a 6-foot fence is permitted. We did finally receive an email today which indicated that if the municipality has a 6-foot limit, they would certainly honor that since it's going to be on our property in any event. So that was their request to us. There is apparently a 5-foot fence somewhere along their property, but that was the request that actually required some change to it. If the board chooses to approve the project, we would simply propose to put a fence along the property line at 6 feet, which is what's permitted in your ordinance. So, and we do believe that you have copies of that they finally did get a copy to the board office for distribution. We responded to the other comments of theirs, but that's the one that would require something that's a physical change. Other than that, we would be prepared now to call our planner, and after that, all we would have would be our summation.
Okay.
Obviously, the public and board's questions. I think Paul has been sworn in one of the times.
Okay, if
but I
you
don't
could
know that
just
we
give
have-
his name and
then
address
maybe-
for the record, please.
Yes, good evening, Paul.
Can you hit the, there you go.
Yes, Paul Greigel, Grygiel. Business address 70 Hudson Street, Suite 5B in Hoboken.
Just looking since I made the comment. I think they were sworn at the first meeting. Paul was there. This is on page 9 of the transcript of the May 11 hearing.
That's correct.
Yes? Okay, thank you. All right. Can you provide us with your professional educational background, your work experience, and other boards that you've appeared before and in what capacity?
Certainly, I have a master's degree in regional planning from the University of North Carolina, a Bachelor of Arts in Urban Studies from Rutgers University. I'm a licensed professional planner in New Jersey. I have been since 1999, and also a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners. I'm a principal of Phillips, Price, Greigel, Laney Hughes, planning and real estate consultants. In that capacity, I represent 7 municipalities currently as planner, and also have appeared as an expert witness before this board and over 150 other planning and zoning boards throughout the state.
We'll accept disqualifications.
Thank you.
Thank you for accepting him as an expert in the field of planning. All right. Paul, can you confirm that you have been in attendance or you've read the transcripts of the hearings before this board and you're familiar with the testimony that's been presented?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And have you also familiarized yourself with the application form and the review letters that have come in from the consultants before the board?
Yes.
I'm sure in your testimony you will describe for the board the documents that you have reviewed in preparation for your appearance and offering testimony as a planner?
Yes, primarily the master plan and zoning ordinance of the city of Clifton.
Okay. And for the record, you'll identify those, the current zoning ordinance and the master plan, which I think dates back to the early 2000s.
Correct.
And any reexamination reports that are available, you've reviewed those as well?
Yes, including there's a draft that was available that I believe has not been adopted, but yes.
Okay, of the new master plan?
Correct.
Okay. All right, so I would ask you to, in offering your testimony, to identify the various variances that have been requested, including the use variance, and perhaps also noting those which have been eliminated over the course of various revisions that have been made to the application in response to comments of the board or the public.
Sure. The properties in the RB2 zone, that's a residential district that allows one-family, two-family, and garden apartments and townhouse dwellings. What we're proposing is mid-rise, multifamily residential. So even though it's still a very similar type of use, it's classified differently and therefore is not permitted, so we require a use variance for that.
Paul, is it accurate to say that, as you had indicated, this is different than asking for a retail use in a residential zone? It is really residential in a residential zone, but it's the design or the style of the residential use?
Absolutely. I would just note, yeah, the ordinance has definitions of different types of residential. So, for example, garden apartments are 2 or more units. You know, there's typically 4 to 12 units with exterior access, or the ordinance allows 8 to 24 units. But it's a type of style that's not typically built nowadays that I'll get into, but it is a multifamily very similar to what's proposed. And of course, townhouses are a somewhat different style as well in terms of being attached dwellings. But they are all residential uses.
Thank you.
The other requirements that are not being met are with regard to the minimum lot area per dwelling unit. 3,351 square feet is required. We're proposing 1,393.6 square feet. So that's a density requirement. So we seek a D5 variance for that. There was a height variance previously requested that's no longer being requested. There's also a minimum side yard setback, and I'll get into this in testimony, but the yards are a bit unique given the shape of the property and its multiple road frontages. But we're proposing what's considered a side yard to Hazel Street, 12 feet is proposed, 20 feet is required. There's also a minimum combined side yard setback of 40 feet required, 33.6 feet proposed. And the last yard setback is to the Garden State Parkway. 40 feet is required for a rear yard. In this case, it's 4.9 feet being requested. The other variances are for maximum lot coverage for the principal building. 25% permitted, 36.2% proposed. We have requested a variance for parking spaces, although, again, as mentioned, we do comply with the residential site improvement standards. So the ordinance for Clifton requires 135 and 104 are proposed. And lastly, there's 2 other ones for the parking space size, 9 by 19s required, and again, 9 by 18s proposed, which is compliant with the residential site improvement standards. And there's lastly the lighting source variance where LED is proposed and it's not permitted.
If I can just interrupt again, with regard to the number of parking spaces and with regard to the size of parking spaces, we have identified them and technically requested them because the ordinance continues to be a variance with the RSIS, correct?
That's correct. The requirements have been in place for some time from the state, but Clifton's ordinance does not match those requirements.
All right, so we're identifying those 2 because they're in the ordinance, but in fact, is it your understanding that the law provides that RSIS is controlling?
Yes, that's my experience representing applicants as well as boards, yes.
Thank you.
So if you like, I can go right into the variance proofs for the use variance.
Okay, why don't you just, from a planner's perspective, if you can also just describe what's there now and its relationship to the area.
Sure, very briefly, we've heard plenty of testimony. The board's familiar with the property. It's a large site of 1.73 acres that's uniquely shaped.
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time? I didn't hear that.
A large property that is, has 1.73 acres.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'll stay close to the mic here. It's uniquely shaped as it has frontage on 4 streets as well as the Garden State Parkway. So I think that's a key element we'll talk about in the proofs. The property is developed with a former factory building that's in fair to poor condition. That's on Lot 1, and we also have a Lot 2 with a vacant dwelling on it. In terms of the context, as we've heard, the surrounding area has a mix of residential uses, primarily 1- and 2-family in the immediate vicinity, You do have senior housing and other apartments across the parkway and elsewhere in the vicinity as well. I would note Hazel Street is a county roadway, and there is the Garden State Parkway interchange a short distance to the south, as is an interchange with Route 46 about a half mile to the south. There also are New Jersey Transit bus stops available on Hazel Street, across the street and in front of the site. So the property, again, is used for a non-conforming use today with regard to the former industrial building in a residential zone. We're proposing to replace it.
Okay, sure. If you would address the variances that are being requested.
Yes, so I'll start with the use variance. That's typically the primary one the board would like to hear about because, again, we're in a zone that does not permit this particular type of residential. And with regard to this type of variance, the board is, I'm sure, familiar with this, but for the benefit of the public and the record, we need to address both the positive and negative criteria. That's established under the state law and under case law that the site is particularly suitable for the proposed use. And also we have to demonstrate there be no substantial negative impacts both to the public good and to the master plan and zoning ordinance. With regard to the variance proofs, I do believe they are met for the use variance. First, with regard to the positive criteria, the site is, I believe, particularly suitable for this type of residential use, given the site's particular size, shape, arrangement, and location. As I mentioned, it's a large parcel with a unique arrangement that does not lend itself well to permitted single-family uses because of the shape and the dimensions of the property, plus the fact that it's fronting on a county road as well as backing up to the parkway. So this is a site that is not your typical residential property. The size and shape, on the other hand, do allow for a creative use, such as providing a building that can fit on this property, such as the multifamily we're proposing, while still allowing adequate area for some buffering and certainly some green space on the property. It is important to note from a planning perspective, we have a non-conforming use as well as the layout of that building that's there. Theoretically, or not just theoretically, it could be reoccupied or reused for a different purpose and be maintained, but we do believe that the proposal to replace the building with one that is shorter in height, set back a bit further, and certainly up to current standards with regard to building codes and its appearance would be preferable to reusing the existing building. So I think the proposal from the applicant would upgrade the aesthetics of the area and provide for new housing opportunities to benefit the city. It also would be investing in Clifton's housing stock. In reviewing census data, the city certainly has a large number of older housing units. There has been some recent development, but again, this is an area where there has not been a lot of new housing, and we're proposing a type that would make sense from its location and to address essentially a way to upgrade this site to provide a use that makes economic sense to redevelop the property. Lastly, as Ms. Gonchar mentioned, the residential use is generally permitted. It's a unique distinction to break out the multifamily. I know zoning typically does this. But the garden apartment use that's permitted here, in my expertise or in my experience as a planner for over 25 years, I haven't seen any new, what would be classified as garden apartments typically built in the North Jersey region. It's just in an older style that had been built in the 40s and 50s, through the 60s perhaps, but is, again, not as efficient in terms of use of land to have a building that has interior elevators, interior hallways, that type of thing. It also is a type of housing that would not be compliant for handicapped individuals who would not meet ADA requirements. In this case, we're proposing a building that would be up to those standards. So in summary, on the positive criteria, we'd be bringing the site closer to compliance with the intended uses by having multifamily and changing this from an industrial to a residential site. It also would be remediating the site by the redevelopment of the property. With regard to the use variance, the negative criteria, I will address that momentarily after we talk about the density variance that's being requested. I think there's a lot of similar arguments, so I don't want to be repetitive with regard to those. The density variance is permitted under Section D5 of the Municipal Land Use Law, 70 D5. In this case, we don't need to demonstrate that the same level of proof that we would for the use variance, but essentially we have to show that the increased density can be accommodated on the property. You know, in other words, that the additional units won't cause undue impacts with regard to traffic, population, noise, light, other types of factors. So I do believe for the density that's proposed, again, given the location, size of this property, and the existing use context, we can accommodate it. As mentioned, this property could be redeveloped under zoning for other types of multifamily residential. So you could have garden apartments or townhouses. They would have somewhat smaller density just by their very nature, somewhat lower density. But the type that we're proposing, this type of housing, provides moderate amenities and handicap access that's important in new development nowadays. You, again, wouldn't want to have buildings that are only accessed by exterior stairways or your second floor units that are not handicap accessible. This is preferable to have a building that is up to current standards. We're also proposing the type of use that allows for parking underneath. So a lot of the parking will be screened from public view. And so it's beneficial both from an aesthetic point of view as well as for residents that would be able to park in a covered area, not in separate garages, but literally underneath the building. But that does also raise the height of the building. So I think there's a trade-off there to have the enclosed parking within the multifamily building. In terms of the potential impacts from density, we have a similarly scaled building on the property currently, which we'd be replacing with one that's lower in height but be more aesthetically pleasing, and again, upgraded in terms of its design for fire safety, for utilities. Just from all points of view, this would be a building that's up to current standards. So I think that given that the light, air, and open space would not be impacted, we're not providing for height that's greater than required, given that we have a building that is similar in scale today, and we have uses that are very similar to what are permitted in the zone. Those are impacts that would not be substantial compared to permitted development. Likewise, the parking would be addressed. We have adequate parking proposed, as well as the traffic. There was testimony that there'd really be no noticeable impact with regard to the difference of a permitted use, permitted density compared to the traffic that would be generated from the proposed density. Likewise, compared to permitted use, the additional density would not have additional light, would not have additional noise. It would not really result in any noticeable impacts beyond a permitted scale of development. I would just lastly point out with regard to the positive criteria, what we're proposing in terms of density works out to about 34.7 units per acre. We recognize that's twice as much as you're permitted for garden apartments, but again, I think there's benefits that are substantial from the type of building proposed, the way the parking is enclosed within it, and simply the fact that we're trying to upgrade an existing site that needs to be cleaned up and will be enhanced with stormwater management and other features that are important for current development, that would justify having additional density over what's permitted. In addition, we're on Hazel Street. It's a busy street where you typically have more intense development located before going back further into the single and two-family neighborhood. So I believe for those reasons, the additional density can be accommodated despite being greater than what's permitted in the zone. With regard to the negative criteria for both the D variances, we need to show there's no substantial detriment to the public good. In this case, we're replacing existing non-conforming use. So we're not starting from a blank slate or tearing down houses. We're replacing an industrial building that could be reoccupied with a residential use. Again, it's a different scale, it's a different type under your ordinance, but it is residential. So we're getting closer to conformity with your zoning ordinance and master plan. This housing, though, would be in an appropriate location next to a highway interchange, where there's bus service, where there's facilities and parks and that type of thing within walking distance. You have sidewalks nearby. This is a location that can accommodate multifamily use of this type. In terms of the driveway location design, we'd be upgrading compared to what's there currently. And actually, I think it would be a better arrangement than having driveways onto Hazel for, say, single-family or two-family use. So by having a unified parking lot for the entire residential development, that would be an enhancement. It would not actually be a negative. I think it would be a benefit compared to what could be built on the property. Just in terms of evaluating impacts also, I would note that the site, we have to assume would or could be redeveloped. It's residentially zoned for multifamily. So we estimate that as of right, there could be 12 single-family detached homes or 22 townhouses, or for that matter, 25 garden apartments. So again, it's not 3 or 4 houses we're talking about here. It's a significant number that would actually, but when you run the numbers, would have similar numbers of school children, similar amounts of land disturbance compared to what's proposed. The very nature of these types of dwelling units result in fewer school children, for example. And the size of a building, of a garden apartment or townhouses actually would be similar in terms of land coverage and the amount of disturbance of the property. So I think for those reasons, there can be no substantial negative impacts on the public good. With regard to the master plan and zoning ordinance, as I noted a number of times, the zoning allows for residential. We're providing for housing that would be, I think, more realistic than what's permitted in terms of a garden apartment use, and as well as compared to 1 or 2 family homes, which would be difficult to lay out on this property. The proposal is allowing for a higher quality building and design than would exist there today. It'd be providing for a new housing type, and also providing for reinvestment in this section of Clifton, which is consistent with certain goals and objectives of the master plan. Simply put, to try to introduce new housing into the community, to provide for economic activity that would, upgrade older sites such as this one, and replacing aging housing stock. In this case, again, not directly because there's not residential there now other than the 1 unit, but providing for a new type of housing that would be beneficial to the area. So I think in terms of the negative criteria, the fact that it is a multifamily zone, we're changing from industrial to multifamily, is enough to help overcome the burden of proof with regard to the master plan impacts. That again, we have a very unique site here that can accommodate multifamily at the scale that we're proposing. So I think for those reasons, the negative criteria have been met as well.
Excuse me. So let me just ask you, you indicated that in terms of the number of school-age children, that there are fewer children who could anticipated from this type of development rather than, say, single-family. Can you just tell us what you're relying on for that testimony?
Yes, there are multipliers from Rutgers University's Center for Urban Policy Research, the most recently released in 2018, which are based upon counts of dwellings throughout the state of different types, different sizes, different bedroom mixes that have multipliers for how many children would be expected per dwelling unit.
And does that vary based on type of unit?
Yes, so it's, for example, just like with the zoning, the townhouses are broken out differently. Single-family homes, multifamily, apartment buildings of this type are all treated differently, as well as the number of bedrooms affect the numbers.
So it's conceivable that, or based on the numbers that you've looked at and the multipliers, that although there might be only 22 townhouses, for example, to my knowledge, there's no restriction on the number of bedrooms that would be permitted. Is that correct?
Not that I was aware of.
So that there could be fewer townhouses or even fewer single-family homes, but those could be a higher bedroom count, and those would have a higher student per unit multiplier applied under the study?
That's correct. It's based upon existing conditions throughout the state. That's correct.
All right. And the Rutgers study is New Jersey-centric. It's not a national. It uses actual counts from actual projects that were built within the state?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry. Oh. All right. And when you discuss the likelihood of other types of housing being constructed, does that all play into the likelihood of some type of redevelopment, small R redevelopment taking place on the site?
Yes. I mean, we're dealing with a property that's, in need of redevelopment, even if not formally designated as such. It's an older industrial building, so we're assuming that the zoning allowing for for residential, there will be residential development of some type.
And the part of having that small R redevelopment would involve the cost of demolition and the cost of environmental remediation resulting from, the industrial building being there?
Yes.
And so that would generally make it more expensive than a greenfield, for example, in order to build any type of residential development.
Yes, certainly any developed site will have the larger cost of development for those reasons.
And if I understand, your testimony also is that you, at least based on your experience, don't see the likelihood that the type of permitted multifamily that's spelled out in the zone, that is garden apartment, at least in your experience, is not likely to be a type of housing that you would anticipate to be built here.
No, given the way it's defined and what's typically thought of as a garden apartment, it's not my experience that that's built regularly in this day and age.
Okay. So that the unit type that could generate the highest density as of right in order to accommodate the costs attendant on a redevelopment is the least likely, in your view, as a professional, to be developed.
Yes, it also is less efficient in terms of having to break up the number of units into multiple buildings, and typically are spread throughout a property. So it's against a style that was prevalent, decades ago, but not so much today.
And not surprising that I think we've indicated that I don't know how old the ordinance is, but the most recent full master plan was 14 years ago or something.
Yes, I believe that's correct.
And the other thing that I think you spoke about in terms of for example, the garden apartment style housing, that does not lend itself to locating the parking on the same footprint as the building.
No, by its definition and the nature of that type of development, it's separate parking lots and/or exterior garages, typically for garden apartments. Here, it's a different type that's, again, very common in projects of this type in North Jersey and just generally in multifamily housing, because it's preferable to have the parking underneath the building where possible.
And that's why is that what you meant when you said it's a more efficient design, because the same land is used for both the building, the residence, and the parking to a greater extent than when you have separate building footprint and more land used for parking?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Why don't we move on to the C variances, and then you can discuss whether those are or not subsumed and what variances we require under the C criteria.
Yes, I listed them out before, but they relate primarily to setbacks for yards. I do believe that they can be subsumed within the use variance request. There is case law to that point. However, we'll put some proofs on the record regardless in case there's a question as to whether the board agrees that these variances are subsumed, because we're talking about a development type that's not permitted. So that's the reason for saying that the setbacks wouldn't need to be met,
Specifically
speaking.
In other words, if you were building something that's not permitted, if you were building an office building in a zone that permits single-family homes, you wouldn't expect to be able to meet the standards for single-family homes if you're building an office building.
Correct.
So the use itself, the project as a whole, absorbs the C variances.
Yes. But nonetheless, if we were to put in the proofs, I do believe they can be granted under what's known as the C2 criteria, where there are certain purposes of zoning advanced by this redevelopment project, and the benefits would substantially outweigh any detriments. First, just very briefly with all of these, the side yard setback along Hazel Street is actually an improvement over existing conditions. We're reducing the height of the building as there as well by having a new building. So we're actually improving light, air, and open space compared to existing conditions. With regard to the combined side yard setback, we're 6.4 feet short. Again, this relates to the unique shape and arrangement of the property, but that we do still provide setbacks from the neighboring streets that are appropriate for this type of development. And lastly, for the setback, the rear yard to the parkway, even though we don't provide 40 feet, that's not really required here. We have enough room for emergency access. This design was modified to allow for that in response to concerns from the fire department. But again, we're backing up in that case to the parkway, so there's no need for additional setback on that side of the property. Lastly, with regard to these bulk variances, there's the coverage. We're over on building coverage just for the principal building, but overall, we comply with the overall amount of coverage if you combine for what would be permitted otherwise for parking and accessory buildings. But again, here we have essentially a different type of arrangement by having the parking within the building footprint. So we're providing for space that typically would be outside in a different building within the same building. So I think that's actually a more efficient and more appropriate use of land. Yes.
So, let me understand. The impervious coverage under this ordinance is broken into 3 components, rather than having a single impervious coverage number.
Yes.
Okay. And if we combine those 3, we don't exceed the permitted maximum impervious for parking, accessory, and principal building.
That's right.
But we do fail to meet the limitation for principal building.
Correct. But again, the principal building here has combined to take some of the accessory use and put it within it. So I think that these deviations would have substantial benefits in terms of the enclosed on-site off-street parking. So it'd be better for residents of the building, but also for the surrounding area in terms of screening some of that parking, providing it in a developed portion of the site. So I think those variances, again, can be granted under the C2 criteria. With regard to the parking spaces, stall size, and number, again, I don't believe that under the way the law works, we need to demonstrate compliance, because we do comply with the state requirements. But the point is, we have testimony that has talked about the number of spaces and how we do comply with what's the anticipated demand for this development. And again, it's very consistent with state requirements for this type of development. Likewise, for the parking space size, that's the state standard.
Okay, and with regard to the number of parking spaces, I believe you were here for the testimony that actually under state law, in addition to RSIS, we now have the electric vehicle parking requirement, which I believe that you heard testimony that we are providing that within the building, within the garage under the building.
Correct.
Okay, but we are not taking the credits that we would be entitled to under state law, so that the number we're providing meets RSIS without credit.
Yes, that's correct.
So as a result, we're actually providing more than RSIS would require on site. Is that a further benefit?
Yes.
In terms of the adequacy of parking and reduction of impacts?
Yes, and for that matter, we're also not providing additional pavement that's not necessary by having the number of spaces that are proposed. Lastly, there's the lighting source variance, and this board's heard this a number of times, I believe, but basically, we don't have the high-pressure sodium vapor lights that are required. LEDs proposed. They're not widely produced. We have better lifespan. It's more efficient, environmentally friendly. So these are all factors that point to allowing the variance to allow for a different type of light source. In summary, with regard to the C variances, I do believe there would be purposes of zoning advanced, including the general health, safety, and welfare by redeveloping an existing industrial site with residential uses and improvements to conditions in terms of drainage, in terms of green space, the amount of planting on the property, those types of things, aesthetic improvements compared to existing, providing for a desirable visual environment, that's purpose I of the land use law, by enhancing the aesthetics of this property and the surrounding area. And G, providing sufficient space and appropriate locations for various uses, including residential. Again, this is a redevelopment, bringing the site closer to compliance with the zoning and master plan. So for those reasons, I do believe the positive criteria would be met for the C variances. With regard to the negative criteria, it'd be essentially repeating what I've said previously, that we don't believe there will be substantial detriments given the conditions in this particular property, the specifics of this site, and the fact that we're upgrading the proposed land use and development on the property compared to existing conditions.
And you would not anticipate any, what I'll call physical impacts based upon what's being proposed in terms of we'd have to meet state noise requirement and the lighting would be shielded. Is there any other physical type that you would anticipate based on the testimony in terms of of impacts on the adjoining properties?
No, there would not be anything with regard to those, especially compared to what's permitted here. Again, this is not, we're comparing to a blank site or vacant site, we're comparing to permitted residential. I think it'd be very similar in terms of any potential impacts from lighting, from noise, the amount of people walking, driving, coming and going. Again, it's a redevelopment site with a small r, if you will, but there will be some, most likely some type of redevelopment of this property one way or the other, and compared to what's permitted, there'd be no substantial negative impacts over that.
And is another purpose of the municipal land use law and purpose of zoning to encourage remediation, environmental cleanup?
Yes.
As a further purpose, and something that is being facilitated by the ability to move forward with small R redevelopment or remediation at this site?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. All right, do you have any summation or summary of your testimony, or are you?
No, I don't want to belabor the point. Again, I think I've provided a lot of testimony. I'm sure the board will have questions and the public as well, so I'd be happy to answer this.
Let me just go back then and ask one more question. For particular suitability to distinguish this site from others in the same zone, you've testified it's on a county road, is access to public transit, another unique characteristic for the proximity here.
Among those, yeah, there's other properties that have that, but this is the largest, if you will, property in the immediate area. It's one that has, again, multiple road frontages. Its size and shape is unique compared to most properties in the surrounding zone district. So these are all factors that I think talk about its suitability. And the fact that it was previously or currently developed for an industrial building, distinguishes it from other properties.
Subject to our right of recall, that's all we have at the moment on direct.
So I agree with you that it needs to be redeveloped. It's an RB2 zone, and it is industrial right now, so it needs to be redeveloped. Here's my issue, though. We're looking for use variance, looking for a density variance, looking for the lot coverages over on a principal. So it sounds like to me you're trying to put a lot more in here than what you can put in. You can fit 25 garden apartments if it was an RB2 zone. You even said it yourself, 25 units. We're looking for 54 units. So you're more than doubling what you need. And the reason you're asking for all these variances is so that you can fit this into that piece of property. So you think that's good planning to do that? Because if the reason we have these the ordinances and zones is so that we can fit what's supposed to be there. So if there's 25 garden apartments, then it could be 25 garden apartments, not 54.
Sure, that's a valid question. I expected a question such as that. The issue is, as I mentioned first, the garden apartment type development is one that is not as efficient. So you would have to have smaller buildings and then the parking separately and end up with a similar amount of lot coverage. And probably the amount of building coverage when you combine the accessory buildings, whether it's garages or storage space, would be similar as well. It's just that in this case, I think there are benefits from having the internal parking. That's what generates the variance for the building coverage. As far as the density, again, the hard things we can't say, well, it's the only way to make it work. But the reality is when you have an old industrial building, a site that needs remediation, there is a certain yield that needs to be accomplished. Again, I don't want to go too far down that road because I'm not going to sit here and pull out numbers and say this is the exact number. But I do believe, though, that we're fitting within a building that is similarly scaled to what exists there today. So from that point of view, it's really not like we're taking the building and making one taller, making it any different in terms of the impacts on neighboring properties.
And the garden apartments, I think the reason that that's zoned for that is because, like you said, yeah, they're spread out, but that also kind of controls how many units can go into that zone. When you have garden apartments, you can only fit a certain amount of buildings in there, so that kind of controls it. But when you come and put one big building in it, then we can put 50, 60, 70, 80 units in the building.
Mm-hmm. Well, the difference is, I guess, this zone's been in place for some time, and no one's been come knocking on the door to build garden apartments there, or townhouses, or single-family, or two-family. It's an old building. It's a site that's, the site also has the single-family house, but basically the overall site has been in this condition for some time. So I think that speaks to the fact that the zoning hasn't worked to date to allow for a redevelopment of the property.
Right, but see, that logic doesn't really stand, because just because nobody has bought it, that means I should just allow anybody to go in there and build whatever they want, and that's
No,
that's
I
not
agree with
smart,
that.
right?
I
Okay.
agree fully, but my point is that the garden apartment, again, we're relying partly, again, on experience in this, in the general region, Bergen, Passaic, Essex, Union counties. I've been practicing here for 25 years. I don't see garden apartments that type being built. It's just not something that developers in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and to today are building. It just doesn't seem to make sense for the most part. So that's, especially in a site like this where you're right next to a highway interchange, on a main road, it just doesn't seem to work. But I understand the concern. I get that it's, we acknowledge the density is certainly higher, but I think we think we can accommodate it despite being, higher than what's permitted.
Any questions from the board?
Through you, Chairman.
Vice Chairman Scorziello.
Through you, Chairman. Can we have our planner explain again the garden apartments versus this current application? I mean, it was brought up, but can you give us, your view of how the ordinance addresses garden apartments versus what we're hearing here?
Yes, the ordinance defines garden apartments essentially as two-story buildings in a more campus-like setting like you had in the older forms of apartment complexes that are, throughout the city. It is an older form of apartment development. I would agree, with the planner that it has, fallen out of currency in more modern times, but the Clifton ordinance does make a distinction between garden apartments and other types of apartment-type developments.
So is garden apartments, or that designation, something we're seeing less and less of? I mean, are we trending away from that? And
Yes, I would say that is correct.
okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Fukas.
I'd say I don't agree with you. In this market, it's rare or unheard of to find any deal that'll cash flow easily at a great price. Nobody is going to buy this building, knock it down, remediate it, and put 25 units up. It doesn't make sense, but, financial is not a consequence of this board. I'm not saying I agree. If we look in Hackensack, right now, there's 5,500 units approved and being built. I'm not saying it's right for this site, but it comes down to bucks, that's it. You could say all you want, we could go back and forth, that's, not that I don't agree with you, but.
Any other questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Molnar.
you discussed that the design of the building is better with the underparking. Well, if you didn't have the underparking, you would nowhere get close to have parking for 54 units on that site. There was no way you could fit 54 whatever parking spaces without that underparking, and you don't have the lot for that.
Well, right, if we were to, simply to take the first floor and make it units, definitely not. We know we
That's
can't.
what I'm saying. If you
Yes.
didn't have that parking underneath, you could not get close to having the parking for 54 units on the available lot size.
Correct, although I just would note that the units are only on the upper floors above the parking, so we're subtracting some of it out, but I see what you're saying.
I understand that, but you
Yes.
cannot get parking for 54 units without the parking underneath the building.
I haven't done the calculation, but I believe that, I'd have to look at that, but I think you're correct.
It won't fit on the lot. You're already got too much lot coverage now. You can't take away the seepage area and everything else for parking spaces.
Well, the only thing I would say is, I haven't done the calculation, but if you have, it's broken out that we could theoretically have garage buildings, which get more coverage. Our point was that even though we're over on the coverage, again, you could build something similar in terms of the amount of building area, even if it's fewer units, because of the way the ordinance breaks it out into the three different components.
But you're looking for double the units that are allowed on, more than double than is allowed on that zone. And we don't have to just be garden apartments, it could be townhouses.
Yeah, that's an option as well, certainly.
Right,
Again, the
everybody's
ordinance-
saying that the garden apartments are out, but that's not the only thing that can be built there. 1 and 2 family homes and townhouses.
Well, I'm glad you raised that question, because from a planning point of view, again, I don't think there'd be many developers looking to build single-family facing on Hazel. So maybe it's something that backs up, the opposite direction, has, rear frontages, just because the site's very oddly shaped, as we're aware. So I don't think it lends itself to that. To the townhouses, I suppose that could be done. We didn't lay it out ourselves, but it's not, again, a large property where you have the ability to put in an interior road in townhouses as you typically see them.
I agree it's a difficult piece of property, but it's a lot of units you're looking for.
Oh, understood.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, to Commissioner Molnar, I think you're right. I went to Martha Washington over there on Van Houten. I walked it. It's 56 garden apartments, 2 stories, 87 parking spots. Except there's about 8 parking spots where there's dumpsters. They're right in the park. They're not enclosed in an enclosure. So, but here, if they did 56 units in garden apartment, they would not have parking. So you're right.
What were the numbers that you said? I'm sorry.
Martha Washington is a 56-unit garden apartment complex. There's 87 parking spots, but they're 2-story garden apartments. They've been there
Which
since the
doesn't meet your
60s.
ordinance.
Well,
Which
that was in the 60s, but
it
but
doesn't meet your ordinance
if you were
parking,
if you were
so-
to build that, if you were to build 56 or 54 units on this site at 1.7 acres, you still wouldn't meet the parking. It would be woefully deficient.
I don't know how big that lot is, but that doesn't meet the parking.
pretty
If there are
big.
2 per, when that was built, it didn't meet your ordinance.
I don't know that it works. They may be parking in the mall next door, but I'm just saying. But Mr. Commissioner Molnar is correct, though.
But if I can ask, I'm not, but he's not, we didn't assert that we could fit them on the site if they weren't under the building. I'm not sure I understand.
I think he should,
All I was stating is that he said the building was better designed because there's parking underneath it. That's not necessarily true. You had to do that because you couldn't get parking on site for 54 units.
Well,
It could have been a story lower.
okay, but do we exceed the parking height?
The parking height, building height?
Building height,
I mean-
sorry.
No. What I also, just so it's clear on the reason I think it's preferable is the screening of those. So you will have some parking exposed, certainly, but facing Hazel and the neighboring properties across the street, that would be shielded from view for the parking lot because it's inside the building. So I think that's a benefit to the surrounding area, as well as to the residents who then could park underneath, take an elevator up without going outside. Not all the spaces, obviously, but there's a large number inside that would benefit from that.
I'm just stating that if you did not have the parking under the building, you would not have parking for 54 units on the site. Screened or not screened. That's all I'm saying.
I won't belabor it. No, understood.
any other questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner DeStefano.
to our planner again. So say they were developing 25 townhouses, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. How would that compare to what's being compared to here now? Because the garden apartments, that's done, that they aren't building those. But say now someone comes with 25, townhouses, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. How does that compare to this?
I never personally analyzed the townhouse use, it was never set forth in plans before this board. It is a permitted land use, I'd have to check on the permitted density per acre, but, just touching on a couple things, with respect to the parking discussions, I would like to strongly highlight to the board that the applicant is meeting the required parking for this project, so any analysis of this project, I think, should stray away from, whether there's adequate parking or not, because the applicant has met, the state requirements for parking on the sites. Now, obviously, there's other considerations, such as the applicant, looking for a D1 use variance, density variance, and other matters, but the parking for this site has been met and is adequate for the project. In terms of townhouses, when you look at demographics, once you start getting to 3-bedroom units and single-family attached, which is a townhouse, and single-family detached units, you do get higher population numbers out of those type of dwellings. The applicant is proposing 2 and 1-bedroom units, which from a demographic standpoint, shows that that's the lowest population generators of the residential types of dwellings. So, you know, when you start introducing townhouses, you know, when it's all said and done, although there's a great number of less of them, they do generate more people than apartments do.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Mullen.
I just want to make clear, I'm no way saying that they don't meet parking. I'm just saying the density. There's no way you could have the 54 units if there was no parking underneath the building, and that the density is just too large.
Yeah, and I didn't make any comment about parking. I just spoke about density, you know, lot coverage, and, you know, overdevelopment. That's what I was speaking about. I didn't see that parking because you do meet requirements. Any other questions from the board? Interested parties? Any questions for the planner on his testimony only? Only on his testimony, not any closing statements or anything like that, just on his testimony? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Gonchar? You want to go to closing statement?
Well, if you're going to have members of the public speak, I think
I will-
we
I
should
will.
really go after their statements, that we should be the last statement.
So then why don't we start with closing statements from the public? Listen, I see there's only like 5 or 6 of you. I'm going to try to give you like 5 minutes each, you know, so we can try to control this as much as we can. If you could state your name and address for the record, please. If you can, there's no button on that? No, I don't think there's any button on that. It should be, no, it's not on. Maybe, try it again?
Oh,
There you go. Perfect.
Okay.
Name and address for the record?
Yes, Len Weezerzak, 38 Florence Drive.
And have you been sworn in
Yes, I
before?
have.
Thank you.
Okay. I do have, my one neighbor couldn't make it here this evening. She did get signatures of people to reject this conversion.
Unfortunately, I can't accept that until, if they were here, correct, Mr. Polgarelli?
Correct. Zebra versus Dover Township. The witnesses have to be here to testify. You can't produce statements or sign petitions.
You can read something if you would like, but you can't
Okay, no, that's fine.
on
That's fine.
somebody that's not here.
That's fine. That's fine. I do agree with the townhomes versus the apartments. It's a gross use of the property. We all know that. I think we all can just all go back to the beginning of the article also, instead of all these setbacks and stuff, where it says use regulations for the RB2 zone to permit a 3-story mid-rise multifamily residential building in a RB2 zone, where a 3-story mid-rise multifamily residential building are not permitted. Period. That's it. Forget about all the other stuff. Really, it's not permitted. We don't want it. Also, one other thing is, I know you guys didn't want to talk about the parking. You say that they meet the parking requirements because the state, obviously, you said they need 135. They have 104. And apparently the state supersedes, okay? But tonight, all you members can supersede the state tonight by rejecting this plan for this 54 apartments. Thank you.
Next. Again, if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Leonard Weezerzak Jr., 25 Highland Cross in Rutherford, New Jersey.
And were you sworn in before?
I have not been sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. In this matter pending before the Zoning Board of Adjustment in the city of Clifton, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
This city's overcrowded as it is. I think we all know that. The schools are full, the streets are full, there's traffic everywhere you go. My parents, my father just spoke. I've lived in Clifton my whole life in this house for most of it. And the traffic just gets worse. I mean, people are coming out of Patterson to go to Route 46. People are coming from the other side of town to get across Hazel Street into Patterson to go to Route 80. It's, you know, there's a lot going on. I don't think that, you know, adding all of these apartments to the mix is really, you know, going to solve anything. There's definitely drainage issues amongst many other things. The building, the property for what they're proposing, there's just not enough space. There's just not enough space. The parking is going to overflow. People are going to have multiple cars. You know, if you have a 2-bedroom unit, you could expect that there may be 3, possibly even 4 cars if it's a family, you know. And if there's not enough parking spaces, they're going to be parking in our neighborhood, in our street, and it's just not right. You guys can do something about it. I think that this is something that needs to be rethought, replanned, and you know, we need to stay within our means. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Glenn Bedford, 23 Lewis Drive. I have been sworn in. The parking problem doesn't go away. They've got proposed 15 handicap parking spaces, okay? Right now in New Jersey, there is 80,000 electric vehicles. That's less than 2% of the total number of vehicles. You can't park a car in an electric charging station, so you can take those parking spaces right out of the system. That's a spot that a regular person can't use, who most drivers are at this point. Now, I understand, wait, they don't have to make them all active. All they have to make active is 5 right now. Maybe that's a stipulation. This only went into effect recently. It's the governor's mandate. So by having 15 parking spaces, that's a method of making profit at the expense of people who don't drive electric cars. Keep that into consideration. And also, there is no provision for employee parking in a building this size. You're going to have a porter. You're going to have pay possibly a rental office and somebody on maintenance. That's not in the equation either. Okay, so parking doesn't go away, it evolves. And the towns have to, do their zoning boards to adjust it, or the state does. Okay, density, we all know it's way over. If you look at the picture of this property, it's not usable. They have a retention pond. Any of us that have driven Route 19 at the intersection of 46 and sees the Parkway's great retention pond there and what it looks like, that's not free space. That's not conducive to the neighborhood. It looks like a retention pond. It's a big hole in the ground. How does that add to property value if you live across the street from that? And let's just take third. You've got a stormwater management system that requires maintenance. Okay, pervious paving requires maintenance. A retention pond requires maintenance. It fails 2 years down the road and floods somebody's basement out. What's their recourse? What is the people who live there now recourse against if this building goes in and something mechanically goes wrong, or the 100-year storm comes through, which the board did hear is more than 100 years now, less than 100 years now. I mean, it's just like this building is too big for the property. It's not if you look at the blueprints, the main corridor of that building is 5 foot wide by 300 foot long. I know people would go into claustrophobic fits with that. The building is not designed to be a luxury apartment. It is bare minimum standards. Every bathroom is 5 foot handicap. So think of that future down the road and what's going to happen. This does not look like a building that is going to be, it's strictly about the dollars. That's all it is, strictly about the dollars.
Thank you.
Not about the neighborhood.
Anyone else? Ms. Gonsar?
Thank you. So as we've indicated, the property is in a residential zone, and what we are permitting is to eliminate a non-conforming use, which was either started before the zoning, which restricted the use and made it a residential zone, or it was granted a variance at some point. In either event, the use that's there presently can be used under either of those theories. There are property rights which attach to it, which means that that use could be rehabbed and continue to be used. And it would be done so without adequate parking on the site, without current or any stormwater management on the site, which would obviously create the inconsistencies in the use that you see there, and which would require what I would consider a much more substantial use variance to create that type of use at the present time. So this is not the type of use variance where we are seeking to put a non-residential use in a residential zone, quite the opposite. What we are proposing brings the property closer to conformance with what your ordinance requires. Again, my understanding is somebody could continue to use that at the present time, and then you would have a distinctly non-conforming use. The application should also be viewed against the backdrop of the fact that the last master plan dates back about 14 years, even though the law requires that master plans be re-examined every 10 years, in order that the town can consider what current needs are, and what current trends are, and what current demands are, and current circumstances. We have heard repeatedly that what we're asking for is not permitted as to the density and the type. Obviously, that's axiomatic. We're here before the zoning board. If every property was used in a manner permitted by the ordinance, then nobody would need to seek a use variance. The use variance mechanism is, I believe, for exactly this type of circumstance, where there is an existing nonconformity. We are presenting a residential use on a property that is unique. It's distinguishable from other properties in the zone because of what exists there currently as of right, because of its multiple frontages, because of its location on a county road, because of its proximity to a state highway. For all of these reasons, we believe that the property is different than the majority of other properties. It does not, under the law, have to be completely unique, but it has enough distinguishing characteristics that entitle it to consideration for a D1 use variance, and we also believe for a density variance. So we understand that we are asking for relief, but that's why we're here, and that's why the law recognizes that if we make the proofs to distinguish the property and to justify both as to the positive and negative criteria, we are entitled to have consideration and be granted a use variance. So if the standard against which we're being measured is the zone doesn't allow exactly what you're asking for, we don't believe that's a justification for denial. That's the reason we're seeking the type of relief we're seeking. The building has been improved, as I said, with this industrial use for years. The industrial use is over 45 feet tall. Our building is proposed to be 32.8 feet. Even with all that parking under the building, we are under the permitted height for the types of uses that are permitted in this zone. So in that regard, we are not intensifying or creating impacts as a result of height. In fact, we're reducing the height of the majority of the building. So in that regard, we're not creating an impact, we're eliminating what we believe to be a negative impact. There is the opportunity to create an assemblage, which creates a 1.7 acre parcel, which is larger than most of the parcels in this immediate area. That too, because the property, I don't know the proper characterization, to me it's something like a peninsula. It's surrounded on 3 sides by roads, and the 4th side is the shoulder, the wooded area that separates it from the Garden State Parkway. There are not a lot of lots that have that unique characteristic, which lends itself to more intense development. Again, intense only in terms of the density, not in terms of the extent or intensity in terms of land usages from what's permitted in the zone. We are improving setbacks along some of the setbacks, and where we don't meet the setbacks, such as the combined side yard, the nonconformity is what I would consider to be minor, where 40 is permitted and 30-something, 33 is provided. In other areas where you have non-conforming setbacks now, we are in fact increasing the setback. We're increasing the view clearly and the setback from Hazel, which is the county road. We are meeting RSIS standards. We are providing, I've heard skepticism about the adequacy of the parking, but with due respect, that's a determination that's been made at the state level. And if we meet and actually exceed what's required by the state, that has to be respected as the standard against which our design is measured. In terms of the concerns with who's going to use them, in a building such as this, if a resident owns a electric vehicle, they have an assigned space that allows them to park their vehicle there. So the kinds of concerns, there are growing pains. It is a relatively recent statute, but development has begun to accommodate those needs. I think when the gentleman spoke, we only have 5 ADA spaces, and that's compliant with state law. The EV spaces, again, is compliant with state law, and as I indicated, the state thinks we need fewer spaces. We are not taking advantage, we're not proposing to take advantage of the reduction that we're permitted to take for the electric vehicles that we are providing. As far as environmental remediation, that is recognized as a significant consideration in viewing a D variance. The fact that the project allows remediation of an environmental contamination is viewed as a positive in terms of purposes of zoning, but also something that makes the site unique and also justifies consideration for a D variance. Since the site is not likely, in our view, to be developed with the permitted type of use which grants the highest yield and therefore justifies the costs attendant with remediation, again, a unique characteristic for this site, that is another item that courts have considered, the likelihood of the permitted uses being developed. I also, just before I forget, address some of the items that I don't think should be legitimately considered. We are seeking, as we indicated, you have a unique ordinance. I practice across the state, and I don't see in current ordinances that impervious coverage is broken up into components, because the stormwater design that needs to meet state standards is based upon the impervious coverage and has to accommodate. It isn't designed separately for an accessory building versus a principal building. And I think that testimony came in through our engineer. So when we speak about meeting the total impervious, we are addressing what should be of greatest concern. The fact that we're putting the parking under the building, our point in discussing why we think that's a more efficient design is, in a garden apartment, for example, you have impervious coverage for the building, but you have, as was indicated, extensive impervious also for parking, whether it's in a garage separately or whether it's at grade surface parking. By placing the parking under the building, which if you look around is the current, the most prevalent, I'd say, current design, both for residential and office buildings, it does allow you to accommodate parking and principal building space within the same footprint, which allows you to avoid using more land for parking separately from principal building. So again, if you were, there was also a concern about the impact of stormwater and our basin. The testimony is, and the review from your own consultants does indicate that we do meet and we will meet the current state standards for stormwater. Whatever was being built presently, whether it was garden apartment or townhouse or single-family residential, there would be requirements for stormwater management. There would be either underground, but more likely now under the current standards, stormwater basins. So whether someone likes a detention basin or not, if you were building garden apartments or a townhouse project or even single-family, you still have to provide that, and you have to find space for it on the site. And whether you like the design of it or not, it meets the state stormwater management requirements, and it would take up a part of any land being developed, including for a permitted use. So we look at this as a site that's basically begging for small R redevelopment. What I mean by that is, obviously, it has not yet been designated as an area in need of redevelopment, but it clearly needs something done. It is deteriorating. It has been vacant for at least 4 years, as I understand it. And at the present time, we've not seen or been made aware of any other efforts to do anything to improve the current condition of that building. We heard a number of concerns that were raised. We came in with a 3-story over parking building with 60 units. We have reduced the 50 units to 54. As you heard this evening, we started with 40 dens. There was substantial concern about what those dens would mean in terms of population, that they would be used as bedrooms. This is a project that has only 1 and 2 bedrooms. You've also heard this evening that there are no bedroom limitations. And while I don't know if garden apartments are going to have, there are 3-bedroom garden apartments, but certainly single-family homes and townhomes are not limited to 2-bedroom. They are likely 3-bedroom, and single-family homes can be 4-bedroom or larger, all within the 35-foot height limitation and the other standards implied by your ordinance. So therefore, if the concern is, and I keep hearing the number, we know the number exceeds your density. We've asked for a variance. The question is, what is the impact of that increased density? And I think our testimony has established that by any legitimate planning measure, there are not negative impacts, and in fact, there are likely indistinguishable results from the development we're seeking and those for projects that would be permitted in your ordinance. The testimony of our traffic consultant was there would be, excuse me, no substantial increase, no perceptible change, excuse me, in level of parking, in level of traffic. Just give me a minute, please. The testimony was that there might be a 2-second increase, and there would be a 1-second increase with development as permitted. He characterized those as imperceptible. In terms of density of population, in a 4-bedroom home, a single-family home or townhouse, you are likely to generate higher population, more school-age children. The testimony from the planner is that we will not exceed the school-age children generated because of the type of housing, both as to the number of bedrooms and the multipliers that are applicable under the current standards in the state. So there really is no indistinguishable intensification or negative impact in that regard, not as to traffic, likely not as to parking, because there can be many, many cars in a single-family home or a townhouse. You have no limitations on the number of cars that can be owned in any type of housing. So the best you can do is to meet what the state requires, but all of the concerns about there being extra cars parked on the street, the same consequence may come from the permitted uses at the permitted densities, and those are public streets. So if someone lives in the neighborhood, whether they're in a single-family home or otherwise, they have the right or the ability to park on the public streets. We have reduced the height of the building, we've reduced the length of the building along Hazel Street, we've increased the setback from West 3rd, we have reduced the total size of the building, the total, the square footage of the residential units. We have proposed state-mandated electric vehicle spaces, and we are not asking for credit. We have heard your comments about the location of the dumpster based on the first plan. That has been moved into the building and will be enclosed on the first floor. We have proposed an adequate loading area to accommodate questions raised with regard to the manner in which deliveries would be made or where they would be able to park. We have demonstrated the ability to circulate refuse, pickup, emergency vehicles. We have demonstrated compliance with state-mandated stormwater where you have none at the present time. And this evening, our planner testified that we are able to meet both the positive criteria for the D1 use variance as well as the D5. This site, in fact, does accommodate the proposed use, notwithstanding the increase in density, as evidenced by the compliance with the overall impervious coverage, compliance with the height of the building, compliance with required parking, compliance with state-mandated stormwater requirements. In every measure, this site does accommodate the proposal that's currently before you, and all without perceptible negative impacts. The law does not require that there be no impact, but only that they not be substantial, and we believe that the proofs presented by our traffic consultant, our engineer, our planner, meet that standard. I would also point out that if all of the documents that have been generated by your various agencies and departments, including fire, police, engineering, those are all part of the record, also support our position that we have met our statutory requirements, that we have met both the positive and the negative criteria, and we believe that the application is entitled to the grant of the relief sought, both as to the D1, the D5, and the C variances, including, speaking of standards that are not totally up to date, the request for the LED lighting. So we would ask that the board look favorably upon the application and grant all of the relief, including the site plan. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no other further questions of the board. Pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Molnar.
I'd like to make a motion to deny this application. I understand the board is here to help relieve issues with ordinances, but to more than double what's allowable in the space, and they keep talking about garden apartments. This is not the only thing that can go there. It's just overuse, too much density. Motion to deny.
Okay, I have a motion to deny by Commissioner Molnar. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Silva.
Mr. Chairman, did one of your members leave?
Yeah, he went home.
Oh, so do you have 7?
Yes.
Yes.
He's our first alternate.
Have all of the board members signed?
Yes.
They
Yes, they
signed?
have.
All of them, thank you. Sorry.
We made sure because we knew he had to go. I have a second by Commissioner Silva. Roll call, Mr. Pogorelic.
Commissioner Silva?
I am in favor of development, but this is way over development. I deny it.
Commissioner Soshan?
This is a tough one. The site definitely needs to be redeveloped. And you've worked very hard hearing all of our questions and concerns. I think you could put 50 more parking spaces in that lot and we still wouldn't have enough. I think the building's a little bit too big. If it was 45 or 40 units, I think maybe it would go through. I don't know, but I have to vote to deny.
Commissioner Molnar,
Yes.
Commissioner DeStefano,
Want to thank the applicant for their testimony. I want to thank the objectors for their input as well as to the board. This board has to look out for the health, the welfare, and the safety of the citizens of Clifton. This zone, though, is residential, and what's there now and what was there before was a textile dyeing and finishing, which, again, is a more intense use than what's proposed here. If a company or someone ever took over this building and wanted to put something that that's there now, we can have trucks coming at all hours of the night. You can have 100 employees parking on the streets. You can have many other things that can affect the residents there. This here is 54 units. If you want to come and see overdevelopment, come see overdevelopment where I am with long-term stay, and there's 2 office buildings on Passaic Ave. That is overdevelopment there, and residents have been affected by that. But this here is something that more and more cities are having, and it's, again, 1 and 2 bedroom apartments with parking underneath. There's no parking requirement, there's no height variance here. Who's going to move into this building here? Couples before, single people, seniors. That's who's going to move in here. This is going to benefit the city of Clifton. This here, again, is something that's good for Clifton. It's a redevelopment of a contaminated piece of property here. The motion that was made here, I think, from what I heard, I can't vote on that motion that was proposed here, so I have to vote yes against this.
No.
No to the motion.
Commissioner Fukas,
Listen, I really like the job the architect Minervini did. He did a beautiful rendering. It's just way too much density. If they could just tone it down a little bit. So I'm going to have to agree with the Commissioner Mulder.
Vice Chairman Scorziello,
So I think we have to really examine what we're voting on here. It's residential that's going in a residential zone, which is allowed. It's similar to what's really permitted in that use. The height variance was eliminated. It's 1.7 acres, and it's somewhat unique. It borders the Garden State Parkway, which in itself, I think that lends itself to this type of project. The factory that's there now is in very poor condition. I recognize that this is a use variance, which is very serious, but we're going to have new construction. There's going to be landscaping, buffering, and then recognize, of course, this is going to be something that's significantly more current. It's going to add to the new housing stock. It's redevelopment in the neighborhood. It's an economic improvement. It's an upgrade. It's reinvestment in Clifton. It's going to add greenage and some landscaping. Garden apartments, which are allowed there, are something that we've heard from both planners, somewhat obsolete, so I vote no to the motion.
Chairman Zucchino.
Okay, it definitely needs to be redeveloped. I think I said that before when I spoke about it. It needs to be redeveloped. It's an RB2 zone, so garden apartments can be put in there, not a multi-building that's in front of us now. That is a use variance, a D1 use variance. That is not permitted in that zone. It's over-dense, it's densely populated, there's too many units, the lot coverage is over. So what you did is you did a use variance, a density variance, and a lot coverage just to fit the building you want in that location. So in my opinion, that's overdevelopment. It's an intense use, and I look at it, and you for credits for EV, you were taking advantage of the credits for the parking. I mean, and then you said you weren't using it. I get it, but listen, you're here fighting for your client, and you're giving all the points that are good for this application. But I can't look at monetary gain. I can't look at cost. I have to look at what belongs there and what can go there. And I disagree. I think it's a big impact on the neighbors. I think quality of life for the neighbors, and I'm voting yes to deny.
5 votes in the affirmative, 2 votes in the negative. The motion carries and the application is denied.
Have a good night, and the board will take a 5-minute recess. Okay, like the board like to reconvene? Yes, please. Okay, next application, 1041 Paulson LLC, 1041 Paulson Avenue. Please come forward. Any interested parties to this application, please come forward.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to recuse myself. Let Commissioner Uri sit in.
Okay. Commissioner Fukas is recusing himself. Commissioner Jaskol will stay in his place. Again, any interested parties to this application, please come forward. Seeing none. Appearance of counsel for the record, please. You want to hit the green button, please, Mr. Iannarella, or that one?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Dominic Iannarella on behalf of 1041 Paulson Ave LLC.
And Mr. Iannarella, how many witnesses do you have this evening?
We have 4 altogether. We have the applicant, and then we have a planner, an engineer, and an architect.
Okay, I'm going to try to give you as much time as I can, but I have another application also that I want to at least start and get started. I actually have one, if not two. I have 2 of them, so.
I can promise you we will be very brief.
Okay.
Thank you. Do you want me to bring everyone up ahead of
Yeah,
time?
why don't we
Get
bring
them-
everybody up, name and
Okay.
address. I'll have Mr. Pogorelic swear them all in.
Sure. First, we have Isaac Abulhaltam. He's the applicant.
If you can hit the green light on that for them, and just state your name and address for the record, please.
Isaac Abulhaltam, 459 Grove Street, Clifton.
Okay.
We have Tom Donahue. He's our
Thomas
engineer.
Donahue, Donahue Engineering, 210 Summit Avenue, Montvale, New Jersey, engineer for the applicant.
Mike Capo.
Mike Capo, architect, 1037 Route 46, Suite G5, Clifton, New Jersey.
On the other side, Bill Martin, our planner.
William J. Martin, architect, professional planner. I am here in my capacity as a professional planner licensed in New Jersey. Address 25 Boulevard, Westwood, New Jersey.
Okay, if each of you can rise and raise your right hands, please, I'll swear you all in. In this matter pending before the Zoning Board of Adjustment in the city of Clifton, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Please be seated.
Thank you. By way of introduction, this application comes before the board tonight with a existing building on Paulson Ave in the M1 zone. The proposed application is for a D1 use variance. Essentially, it's approved now for office space, and the indication would be to change it to essentially an auto accessory shop. The actual structure of the building would not be changed in terms of the footprint. There would be 2 bays consisting of essentially auto accessory uses on both sides. And my first witness, who is the applicant, can speak more about that. And so I'll call Isaac Abulhaltam as the first witness, who is the applicant.
Sure, yeah. If you can give the spelling of your last name for the stenographer, please.
Abuhaltam, as in Mary.
Thank you.
So for the board, if you could just speak briefly on what services, auto accessories, obviously a big thing. So can you just narrow down for the board what exactly that means, what you'll be doing there?
Yes, so I'm looking to do a 2-bay garage, and one side of the garage is to do tints and wraps. On the other side of the garage to do electronics for cars.
And how many vehicles a day do you expect to be servicing at that facility?
It's an appointment-based business, so the turnaround time for a car is about a week.
So you'll have one vehicle in each bay for about a week?
Correct, yes.
So the in and out traffic for that structure will be very minimal or none for the period of about a week or so, correct?
Yes.
And then in terms of your hours of operation, then you'll have the vehicles in there, but with people working, how long will they be there during the day?
Hours of operation would be from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m.
And how many people will you have working at that location?
4, total 4.
Okay. Will they all be necessary throughout the whole course of the day, or will they have shifts?
Not all of them will be necessary throughout the course of the day, just depending on what's being done to the cars. A lot of times, tints is a one-person job.
Okay. And in terms of the planner, just since you're here as the operator, the planner had a question about refuse removal. What will you be doing for the garbage from that, for that site?
Yes, there's a 2-yard dumpster in the back of the building. Garbage gets collected twice a week, Monday and Friday.
Okay, so there's already a dumpster on site that you would just utilize for this
Correct,
purpose?
yes.
And then In terms of parking for the employees, you were providing parking, as you know, on site for them?
Yep.
And other than the employees and those 2 vehicles in there at a time, would anybody else be entering into that structure besides those employees and those vehicles?
No.
All right, that's all I have for Mr. Alvarado.
Any questions?
Mr.
from the
Chairman?
board? Commissioner Molnar.
Sir, you stated there'll be 2 vehicles, one in each bay or whatever.
Correct.
Will those stay in the bays, not be parked in the lot for days? They'll be kept in the building?
So the cars will be kept in the bay, and they don't come out of the building up until they are completed.
But will they be left in the parking lot overnight? That's what I'm trying to find out.
No,
They'll be kept inside
Inside the building.
for overnight?
Yes.
And as far as the garbage enclosure, is it enclosed right now? Garbage dumpster, is it enclosed? Is there a fence around it or anything like that?
There's not a fence around it. It is in the corner behind the building.
Okay, well, we may want to think about enclosing the dumpster enclosure. All right, thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner DeStefano.
So just going over it, it says, you know, you're going to do auto accessories to cars, and you mentioned something tints. The tints, what are you, tinting windows, or what are?
So for the wraps, wraps are very common. They're accommodated with the tints, as well. So it goes hand in hand.
So tell me, I bring my car there, what exactly goes on there with it for a week that it?
Yes. So when customers to get their car wrapped, it's to change the exterior paint of the vehicle with a vinyl film. So with that, you have to remove the front bumper, rear bumper, door handles, and yes. And so it's a tedious process.
Okay,
a long
so
process.
I see what you're saying now about it. I've seen it on TikTok, I think, now.
Yes.
What you're saying. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Through the chair.
Mr. Graviano.
I would like to note, this is a permitted conditional use in the zone. The applicant simply doesn't meet all of the conditions of the zone. So this is a permitted activity.
Thank you.
This is like Park Central over there. One of the conditions is certain feet from a park. So that's one of the reasons why the applicant's before the board.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, Mr. Iannarella.
Thank you. I'd like to call Mr. Donahue next. If I can just offer his qualifications. Mr. Donahue, how long have you been working as an engineer?
We'll accept his qualifications.
Okay,
Your
thank you.
license still, because you've been in front of us many
My
times.
license is still current, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll describe the plans that were submitted to the board. The plans consist of 2 sheets dated 10/25/22. One is the overall area map, zoning map plan, and then the site plan. So the property is located at Lot 8, Block 1903, known as 1041 Paulson Avenue. The property is located in the M1 zone. M1 zone properties are to the north and south of this property. The railroad is to the west. Across the street is the RA3 zone and Washington Park. The property size is 11,182 square feet. If you look on sheet 2, which is entitled the site plan, the property contains an existing 1-story building. It has a non-conforming side yard of 4.95 feet, where 10 feet is required. The property also contains concrete pavements, asphalt pavements, which consists of a parking lot of 6 spaces, including 1 ADA space. And basically, the entire lot is considered impervious. There's an existing freestanding sign on the north corner of the existing building, which will remain. The applicant is proposing to renovate the existing building into an auto accessory garage. The existing pavements and concrete areas will remain. The applicant is proposing to line stripe 5 new parking spaces, which have a size of 9 feet by 20 feet along the rear property line. Those would require a variance because they are less than 10 feet to the property line. There are 6 existing, as I mentioned, 6 existing parking spaces on the north side of the building, and those will remain also. The building renovations will be discussed by the architect. The applicant is proposing a 15-foot wide access easement for the adjacent car wash property. The easement would begin at the northwest corner of the property at the existing driveway entrance and border along the northern property line to the rear of the existing building and then turn south and be 15 feet from the existing building to provide access to the car wash canopy area.
Mr. Donahue, that easement, I assume that will be a permanent easement, correct?
Yes, that'll be a permanent easement, access easement to the adjacent property.
Because if it's not permanent, then if this gentleman decides to sell, you can never get to the car wash.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, it would be a permanent easement, and with the prior application with the car wash, I think there was an indication that was already supposed to be like that. It is in use every day, this actual flow of traffic from the right side of the current building that's before the board, behind it and to access then the entrance to the car wash. So it's something that's been used for years, and this would, I think, just memorialize that permanently.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just want to make sure that it's a permanent easement.
Correct.
So
It
that
would
you don't landlock that other piece of property.
Absolutely. That's the intention.
As mentioned by the applicant, there'll be 4 employees, and the closest category for parking calculations was the car wash, which requires 1 parking space for every 2 employees, plus 1 parking space for every 300 square feet of the building. So the application would require 11 parking spaces, and we are proposing 11 parking spaces. As I mentioned, the existing parking spaces will be repainted on the north side of the building. The existing freestanding sign will remain and possibly be resurfaced for the new use, and that will comply with the zoning code. There are no lighting or landscaping proposed in this application. Deliveries would be either a small van or box truck to the front of the building. And there is, as the applicant mentioned, an existing dumpster in the rear of the property, which is not enclosed, and we will look into enclosing that dumpster. That is all that I have.
Any questions for Mr. Donahue?
Chairman,
Commissioner Jaskell?
we're not seeing on our plans these proposed parking spaces on the rear side. Is that accurate?
Yes, along the rear property line, which is 100.04, it's on the, more or less the top of the page, and there's a 5 with a circle on it. So there are 5 parking spaces. There's line striping, lines that come perpendicular to the property line, and they are parallel parking spaces.
Oh, okay, so essentially the arrows are in the right places. There's going to be along the back of the property line, there'll be parallel parking spots.
Correct. The arrows are for the movement through the property to the car wash.
Any other questions for Mr. Donahue? Seeing none, Mr. Iannarella?
Thank you. I'll call Mr. Capo next, the architect. Will the board accept his
We'll
qualifications?
accept his qualifications also.
Thank you.
He's been in front of us many times.
Thank you.
Mr. Capo, if you could just speak to the design of the structure that you put forth.
Say that again, I didn't hear you.
If you could just speak to the design that you
Yeah, okay.
prepared. Thank you.
So it's pretty simple. We're just going to be basically cutting the entire space in half, right down the middle, adding a new vestibule, 2 new overhead doors, 1 for each of the spaces, and a new common barrier-free toilet room. Each tenant space is going to be approximately 1,250 square feet. That's the extent of it.
There's not much to the architecture of it. It's an existing building. We're not changing the
Just a
footprint.
basic big garage, basically.
We're
right?
putting up a wall and a toilet, basically. I told Mr. Capo to speak a lot about the barrier-free toilet tonight because it's all we had.
Any questions for Mr. Capa? Seeing none, Mr. Iannarella?
Thank you. If I could call Mr. Martin next, please.
And we'll accept his qualifications also. He's been in front of us many times.
Thank you. Mr. Martin, you prepared remarks, if you can just please tell the board.
Okay, I just want to clarify that Mr. Graviano, we agree that it's a D3 variance situation here? It's a conditional use?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it's essentially negative criteria that you're interested in, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the proof here is to show that the site can accommodate the proposed use withstanding the deviation from the conditional use requirements.
Right, okay, I just want to clarify that. In order to prepare for this hearing, I have reviewed the zoning ordinance of the City of Clifton, the Clifton Master Plan, the City of Clifton 2008 Master Plan Reexamination Report, and the City of Clifton Master Plan Reexamination Report draft dated July 2021. The engineer touched on this, but I'm going to go into a little bit of it. The subject property is located at 1041 Paulson Avenue, Block 19.03, Lot 8, City of Clifton, Passaic County, in New Jersey. The building exists now, so what we're proposing is not to build something, but to modify a building that is already in existence. It exists on the west side of Paulson Avenue, about halfway between Clifton Avenue and Route 46. The property is located in the M1 zoning district, and under the M1 zoning, the zone is actually called M1 Restricted Industrial and Research Laboratory Zone. The proposal is to convert the old car wash, that's where the car wash used to be before it moved over to the building to the south, to convert that into a two-bay automobile aftermarket sales and installation facility. And you heard Isaac, the owner, represent what he's going to be doing there in terms of how long the vehicles stay in there. So it falls under the category of auto repair garage, which is a conditional use in the M1 zone. So that's why we're here. So we're addressing negative criteria because under the conditional use, the assumption is that the use itself meets the criteria to be established in that zone. But we still have to address the negative criteria. The existing building will be modified and will be improved in appearance and in function as shown in the architectural plans, and you've heard from the architect. The site plan traffic flow around the building to the car wash on the south is proposed to remain the same. The owner requests a variance to be approved to allow this use, which I characterize as accessory to the car wash, and to use to allow for this additional business activity, which is really accessory to the car wash. When you go in a car wash, your car's going through the wash tunnel, and you go into, there's a pedestrian walkway that accompanies that wash tunnel, and they have retail items for sale. They like car fresheners and such. This is a little bit more. This is the wrapping of the car, the lights, auto starters, things like that. It takes longer. People leave their cars, and it can take up to a week. As far as the area goes, the subject property is at the edge of an industrial zone bordering on Paulson Avenue, across from a residential neighborhood comprised of 1 and 2 family dwellings. There's also a large park, and there's a public school beyond the park, and the residential neighborhood on the other side of Paulson. It's on the other side of Paulson Avenue, so you have the 4 lanes of traffic separating from the site to the residential part. It's Washington Park, and beyond that is Clifton Public School 100, and to the north and south of the park is the residential neighborhood, which comprises 1 and 2 family dwellings. North of the property are various businesses in the M1 zone, typically office operations, fire safety business. I believe there's a painting contractor in the building immediately to the north in that area. To the south of the subject building is the car wash that we are trying to create this accessory use for in the old car wash building. Further, there is a building on the other side of the car wash that in the past decade or so was converted into multi-tenanted, it looks like office business operations. It looks like a strip mall, but it's just a multi-tenanted building. To the west of the property is the Erie-Lackawanna Railroad line, and the other side of that, to the west of that, is the M3 Special Industrial District, and there's some additional districts back there, too. The residential neighborhood to the east contains dwellings in the RA3 zone on 5,000 square foot lots, one-family dwellings up to 30 feet in height. So the restricted industrial zone permits a variety of uses, as I'm not going to go into the uses, but one of those is a conditional use as auto repair, which is what we're characterizing this as. So just briefly, I would discuss the master plan. I reviewed the master plans. There are several goals that are advanced by this project that are in the master plan. I'm not going to go into exhaustive detail about that, but goal 1, which is to continuing to encourage a balance of land uses. Goal 6 states that the master plan seeks to encourage the reuse, rehabilitation, or reconstruction of older non-residential areas. This building is an existing building. It is in need of repair, and the operator, the client, wants to use it as an accessory to the car wash, as I've said before. Goal 13 from the master plan also states that we want to enhance the community appearance and the visual environment by encouraging good design. You heard from the architect, there are going to be improvements to the building. It's going to be cleaned up. It's going to look nice, just like the car wash building looks nice. This building will also look nice. You have the two buildings together working together. So what I would suggest to the board is that any negative criteria regarding this property is a lot of the, what is proposed is, it addresses the conditional use, but the negative criteria is also addressed. The proposed activity within and around the building is not substantially detrimental to the public good or the intended purpose of the zone plan, the zoning ordinance, or the master plan. There is no real change in traffic. There's no real traffic generated by this use in conjunction with the car wash to the south. So there's no negatives regarding that. And there's no degradation of property values, in having a vacant building be repurposed and used for accessory to another building in the M zone. There is no noise or nuisance coming from the proposed use of installing aftermarket products on automobiles. And I would say also that you have the 4 lanes of Paulison Avenue that separate this site from the residential across the way. And if the board sees fit to grant the relief requested and grant the variance, I believe this can be done since the variance can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good, and it will not substantially impair the intent or purpose of the zone plan, zoning ordinance, or master plan. At this point, I would respectfully request the board consider the variance request. And thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for the planner? Mr. Norella?
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Mullen.
I just have a follow-up question for the architect.
Sure.
The plan I'm looking at shows a dumpster. Is that on your property, or is that the train's property?
I'm not sure, actually.
If that's the property line, you're on the Lackawanna,
You're talking about the dumpster.
the dumpster.
The dumpster. Oh. Yeah. Okay. Thank
Yes, the dumpster appears to be on the
Right away of the train?
right-of-way of the train. That'll have to be moved on to.
I have a question for Mr. Graviano. Is there an issue if we have to eliminate a parking space to accommodate a dumpster enclosure on their property? Because I don't think they could enclose it on Lackawanna's property.
Given this use and this location, I don't have a problem with the loss of a spot for that.
Okay, so like where that number 5 is, possibility of relocating the dumpster to there and enclosing it. Okay, I just wanted to bring that up because I see it back on the train's property and you can't be enclosing it. I don't know where else you put an enclosure and not impede traffic.
We will look for a spot, otherwise we'll put it on that spot that has the 5 with the circle on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? On around.
Thank you. Very briefly in closing, I would just ask the board to look favorably upon this application. It is a less intense use from what's approved now there. It's currently approved for offices where you would have multiple people in and out, traffic. What you're going to have here now is an auto accessory building where there will be 2 vehicles inside these 2 bays for a week at a time, 4 employees that would be inside the building, not necessarily needing one employee at every time. So you'll have a very less intense use. It will be effectively what it is right now with no creation of traffic whatsoever. So I would ask the board to look favorably upon this and vote in the affirmative. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no other questions from the board. Pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner DeStefano.
I think the applicant and the experts here gave good testimony on the variances needed. Again, this is a less intense use that, can go here. I'll make a motion to approve the application, that the applicant follow the Negley report, Mr. Graviano's report. They conform to the hours that they stipulated, and that they move that dumpster to spot 5 or work with Mr. Graviano on where to enclose that dumpster.
Okay, I have a motion to approve by Commissioner DeStefano. Also, I just want to make sure that we do get a permanent easement set up for that property.
We'll have that recorded. Yes, I'll prepare that and have it recorded.
All right, thank you. So I have a motion to approve by Commissioner DeStefano, seconded by Commissioner Soshan. Roll call, Mr. Pogorelic.
This is a motion to approve the application at hand. Commissioner Jaskell?
Yes.
Commissioner Silva?
Yes to approve.
Commissioner Soshan?
Yes.
Commissioner Molnar,
Yes.
Commissioner DeStefano?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Scorziello?
Yes.
Chairman Zakino?
Yes.
7 affirmative votes. The motion carries and the application is granted.
Gentlemen, thank you. Always a pleasure to see you. Thank you.
Mr. Pogorelic, that I believe also needs Passaic County Planning Board approval, correct?
That's correct. It's on the,
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know. Yeah, no, that's fine. I just,
very good.
We will be submitting that there.
thank you. Okay, next application, Walbury Properties LLC, 1-9 Walnut Street. Please come forward. Any interested parties to this application, please come forward. Ron, do you have someone sign in?
Yep.
Again, any interested parties to this application, please sign in. I know one gentleman did. Okay, appearance of counsel for the record, please. Yes, thank you. If you can just hit the mic, please. The little button that makes it green. Hit the big red, there you go. Hit that one. Press it. There you go.
Yeah, here we go. Okay.
There you go.
So thank you, board members, for allowing us to present this application even at this late hour. We'll try to give the quick version of it. I'm Gary Cohn. I represent the applicant, Walbury Properties LLC. I have an architect with me. I have a planner engineer, and I have the owner with me. We, of course, submitted the application, so the board certainly has a good idea of what we are proposing here. This application involves property located at 1 and 9 Walnut Street in Clifton. It also involves a small portion of property that's in the city of Passaic. And we also have a pending application before there, but because this is the major part of the application being in Clifton, we brought the application in Clifton and need to have that heard first. What we are proposing with this project is in the M2 zone, and we're seeking to build a flex warehouse on this lot. It is a lot that has a few different lots on it, and one of the advantages of this particular application is to be able to join that lot, those lots, and create a much more conforming lot.
Mr. Cohen, if you would like, you can sit down.
Okay, so, thank you. So, without stealing the thunder of my professionals that are here, I think that you will hear as we present this application, it has the advantage of creating a more conforming lot, and according with your zoning ordinance, we're taking away what we think is an eyesore right now with what exists there. I was there this afternoon, and it really needs developing. What's there is not something that really should be there, and we are trying to make a project that is viable. And although the M2 zone allows an industrial plant, I suggest that what we are proposing there is a lot less intense than putting a industrial plant. Having said that, I will call my first witness, the architect, Mike Romanek, who's to my left. And
Mr. Cohen, if you don't mind, maybe we can have each representative state their name and address for the record, so Mr. Pogarella can swear all three of them in, and then we can go from there, okay?
So I have three people I'd like to testify. I have Michael Romanek,
Yep.
the
If you
architect.
can state your name and address for the record, please.
Michael Romanek, R-O-M-A-N-I-K, have an office at 291 Crooks Avenue in Patterson.
Thank you.
I have on my right Mr. Joseph Vince, the engineer. State your name, please.
Joseph Vince, V-I-N-C-E. Place of business is 9 Post Road, Suite M11, Oakland, New Jersey.
And I may or may not use Mr. George Bean, but he is a officer of the applicant Walby Properties LLC. Just state your name.
It's George Bean, B as in boy, E-A-N. I'm at 61 Willard Street in Passaic, New Jersey.
Maybe you can please stand, Mr. Pogarella will swear you in.
Please raise your right hand. In this matter pending before the Zoning Board of Adjustment in the city of Clifton, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Cohen, now if you would like to
Okay,
go to one.
Mr. Romanek, could you've appeared before this board before?
Yeah, we'll accept his qualifications, he's been in
Okay.
front of us.
You prepared a set of architectural plans for this particular project, is
Yes,
that
I have.
correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And you're familiar with the project, and would you please review and explain what this project includes from an architectural point of view?
Yes, okay. The first sheet that I have here, Commissioners, you do not have that in your set of drawings. It was something that was prepared.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, can he use the handheld, please?
Can we give you the handheld mic, because I know.
It's right there on the desk.
Sorry.
And if is that something we don't have, then we'd have to mark that into
Yes, that
evidence.
is correct.
We
Can
can
we mark
mark
that
that
A1?
as
A1.
A1. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is something I was prepared for tonight's meeting, just basically a presentation to you. As far as the location of the property, I know the commissioners are familiar, obviously, with Walnut Street. Looking at the top of the sheet, commissioners, you'll see it's labeled Van Houten Avenue, of course. And if you travel in the south direction, turning left coming from this direction, you'd be on Brighton Avenue. You would pass the Dollar Tree on the right side as you're, again, proceeding on the south on Brighton Avenue. You also see on the left the existing Silk Club is there with the associated parking, which is located in this area here. The subject property is outlined in red, you can see here, which is on the south side of Walnut Street, approximately 81 feet in from Brighton Avenue. It has 150 feet of frontage along Walnut Street with a depth of 100 feet, as you can see on this drawing here. Walnut Street is a two-way street. There is no parking, however, on the south side or our side of the street, which is along here, obviously. Traveling in a westerly direction, you'll see it comes out to Pleasant Avenue, which is a one-way. And you can see from the arrows here, it's a one-way. So if you're traveling on Walnut Street, you're forced to make a right turn onto Pleasant Avenue. Walnut Street is a two-way. Brighton Avenue is a two-way street, as well as obviously Milton Avenue and Van Houten. So the property contains 15,000 square feet of property, again, having 150 feet of frontage along Walnut Street. The proposed building is a one-story structure, which is going to be used for storage, and that's comprised of 7,422 square feet. The lot coverage of that, and again, Joe Vince is here, who prepared the site plan. He's the site engineer. He will get into detail as far as the site plan itself goes, but this was just a general diagram to show the commissioners some of the outstanding features of the general area. The lot coverage represents 49.6%. In the M2 zone, which is the general industrial zone in Clifton, 60% is allowed. We also do meet the minimum lot area of 10,000 square feet. We do have 15,000 square feet of lot area. And the height is acceptable as well. We are proposing a one-story building that will be 33 feet, 8 inches in height. In the M2 zone, 4 stories is allowed, as well as 40 feet. So we do comply with those aspects. Again, the use is allowed in the MU zone as a conditional use, which essentially means the use is allowed. There are certain conditions that we have to satisfy. We do not satisfy all the conditions, which we will discuss as well. But generally, commissioners, as you can see, the area that's colored in yellow is the small portion of the site, as Mr. Cohen had indicated, is not in Clifton, it's in Passaic. It's approximately, I believe, around 2,700 square feet. Again, Joe Vince, the site engineer, will discuss that. But that is that triangular area here. You can see this dotted line, which represents the borderline between Clifton and Passaic. So that is the exception as far as the Clifton property goes. The rest of it, obviously, that's outlined in red, is the entire site, which also is in Clifton as well. Directly across the street, I know the commissioners are familiar with the National Sukkah outlet, which essentially runs from Brighton Avenue all the ways out to Pleasant Avenue. That's it's a substantial building. It's a large building, and the extent of it, as I said, runs from Brighton Avenue all the ways to Pleasant Avenue itself. Traveling on Walnut Street, on both sides, as I mentioned before, you have the parking area, which is really associated with the Silk Club on the left, facing it, or on the east side, and standing on Walnut Street, facing the property immediately on the right side, you have a large parking area as well. There are a couple houses down going towards Pleasant Avenue. Southerly, along Milton Avenue, you do have residential properties along here. There are 6 residential houses that have frontage on Milton Avenue. And as you can see on the diagram, it's also shown on the site plan, commissioners, but these are the rear yards of the residential properties. For instance, here you can see the garage in the back of the house that fronts Milton Avenue. There's also a shed that's located in the rear property of, again, another house that's fronting Milton Avenue. So essentially, we're in the M2 zone, general industrial zone, and as I indicated, it's only for that exception, the yellow area that's in Passaic. So we are proposing a one-story building. It'll be used for storage. Again, that is allowed in the M2 zone with certain conditions. So we are seeking, obviously, variances for the non-compliance of those conditions. Again, the use being allowed in the zone. So that's a general description of the area, commissioners, and I can proceed, Gary, if you wish.
Why don't you just explain how this works? This building.
Mr. Cohen, I need you to speak into the mic. I'm sorry. That's okay.
If you would explain, how this building, it's a warehouse building, correct? Just explain what the building is and how the project is supposed to work in terms of its use.
Okay, yes, I will do that. Again,
Just through the chair,
Mr. Graviano,
just in the effort of saving time, I think a question I have needs to be addressed now as we carry forward. The applicant's proposing a 33-foot building. This zone requires a 40-foot rear yard setback. They're proposing 4 feet. Is there any way to get an additional buffer between this building and those 6 properties in the rear of the property?
well, that's something that I believe was discussed with Mr. Bean.
Yeah.
So that's something I know. We, again, satisfy the lot coverage. We do satisfy the minimum lot area, the lot width, the lot depth, and so on. We do not provide the 40 feet because we do adjoin a residential property, commissioners. The requirement for the conditional use is that we do provide 40 feet in the rear. We don't have that. We're providing 4 feet here. As I said, it does abut the residential properties. However, those are the rear yards of the residential properties, and I accept, obviously, the question you're answering. That would substantially reduce the size of the building, of course.
No, and I'm not saying that I think it's inappropriate to have less than 40 feet, but, 4 feet doesn't give you any opportunity for any trees or any buffering to
Yes.
screen this building that's going to be right in their backyards. I think, you know, the applicant should at least try to give something that gives an adequate planting space to, you know, provide some trees to shield this building from view.
You know, I haven't appeared in Clifton in quite a while, but it's always my position, we listen and try to take into consideration the input of the of planners and city officials. 40 feet is relatively impossible for us to comply, given the dimensions and shape
I just
of the lot.
said that I think that 40 feet,
I
you
understand
know,
that.
is not, you know,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
understand the characteristics of this lot here, I understand that.
Yes, and
I'm just saying you need to find a number between 40 and 4
and my question
to
is
provide a landscape buffer to the neighboring residential properties.
my question is, do you have some suggestion that maybe we could, you know, consider as we're going ahead with this that might?
I think I would defer to the board to what they think is appropriate in this situation. If they ask for my guidance, I'll give it, but I just think that 4 feet doesn't allow you to provide any landscape buffering.
Now, you have to understand, you have residential homes there. So
Yes.
you need to give some type of buffer for the residential homes. You know, he's exactly right. 4 feet is nothing. So, you know, 12 feet, 10 feet, you need something. You need some buffer there. You need to put some plantings in there. I think the board, I don't have to speak for everybody, but we definitely, you know, agree that the place has to be redeveloped. We get it. It's sitting there. It's an open lot. It's, you know, it's something that needs to be done. Across the street is a building, a warehouse type of building. We know the zone it's in, but you do butt up against residential homes. So you need to put some type of buffer in there.
Okay, so why don't we finish this testimony, and we are going to deal with that subject as we proceed.
All right, yes, Commissioners, that was a general description of the site location. I will turn to the first sheet of the architectural drawings, which are dated 3/18/22. This is a floor plan of the site. Walnut Street is down here. You're looking at the same orientation as I presented it on the first sheet. And essentially, the building, as I indicated, is 7,442 square feet. It's comprised of 3 tenant spaces, as you can see here in the lower section, which is space 3. That's 1,961 square feet. We have space 2, which is also 1,961 square feet. And on the top, going towards the rear property line, we have space number 1, which is 3,520 square feet. And you can see the size of the building, obviously. We have, it projects out 20 feet here. So that's essentially it, the parking here. And again, this is just an illustrative plan showing the parking, but again, on Joe Vince's site plan, he'll get into detail with that as far as the driveway goes and so on, the dimensions of the driveway and also the parking spaces and so on. So as you can see, we do have an overhead door serving each of the spaces. We do have 2 overhead doors serving space number 1, which is located over here and over here as well. We have front pedestrian doors as well as rear pedestrian doors on the right side. We are providing a 4-foot setback on the right side, which abuts the large existing parking area, and also a 4-foot setback along the front as well. There are toilet facilities, obviously, in each of the spaces itself. So that's the footprint of the building. It's 1 story in height, as I indicated, 7,442 square feet.
Mr. Romanek, how tall is the building?
The building is 33 feet 8 inches, and again, the ordinance does allow 40 feet and 4 stories, as a matter of
Correct,
fact. So we're
correct.
just
But
providing-
just imagine to the residents back there, 33 feet high building, 4 feet from the property line.
Yes, and I think...
We're going to,
we're
Chairman,
gonna-
we are
yes,
going to respond
Mr. Chairman,
to
I
that.
understand what you're saying. We're going to discuss that more if you don't mind, okay?
We have a proposal.
Okay.
Sheet number 2, the front elevation, Walnut Street, as you can see here. We do have windows. We are proposing a stucco facade at this juncture as far as what we are proposing. This overhead door is the one beyond, so that's not at the street frontage, but that is beyond in the back of the yard there. That's what the front looks like. The left side, which is the facade facing the parking area, as you can see on your drawing, it is labeled 33 feet 8 inches. You'll see each of the 3 overhead doors as well as the pedestrian doors. We did provide windows on all the 4 facades, as a matter of fact. The building is 93 feet in that dimension as far as the left side goes.
Part of the space.
And the sheet number 3, the last sheet, Commissioners, as you can see, the right side elevation, which is, provides the pedestrian door from each of the spaces, again, has windows. They're simple elevations. We figured we'd vary the stucco, the coloring of the stucco, as far as the outside to give it some aesthetic appeal. But it's going to be masonry essentially with stucco, but we do want to maybe have some earth colors. There'd be 2 colors that would contrast each other. And again, the rear yard, as we're discussing now, I did provide some windows there. It's a possibility which we can maybe further enhance that by providing additional windows, and as well as the landscaping, which we'll be discussing. So that might be also an option, Commissioners, as far as making that somewhat a little more attractive, you might say. So those are the 3 sheets of the architectural drawings at this point, Commissioners.
Any questions for Mr. Romanek? Interested party, do you have any questions for the architect? If you have any questions for the architect, but only on his testimony, you're welcome to get up to the mic and ask him any questions. Okay, and it's just on the architect's, okay. So then I just need you to go to the mic, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Carlos Santana, 22 Milton Avenue.
Okay, and I just need you sworn in, Mr. Pogarelli, can you swear him in?
In this matter pending before the Zoning Board of Adjustment in the City of Clifton, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you
Swear.
God?
Yeah, please.
With the, at the rear of the building, can you put the picture with, you said they were discussing the 4 feet, the 4 feet space at the rear? There's a retaining wall back there that's already like 4 feet from that. Are you guys gonna put the building 4 feet from the retaining wall, or is it gonna start at the retaining wall?
Yes, that's on the site plan, and as a matter of fact, I think Joe Vince can address that. And Mr. Chairman, you mentioned about the height of the building before. In fact, less of the 33 feet 8 inches.
Because of that retaining
visible
wall.
to the rear yards, because there is a retaining wall there as well. So
Right,
it's gonna be
I
less,
get
in
it,
fact.
but it's still close to the property.
It's close,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
So maybe we want to hold that question until the.
And one more question. With the windows in the back, what kind of lighting will be coming out of there?
No lighting, they're set high, the building.
It's gonna
It's
be,
just
so
really-
there's gonna be windows, but no lighting coming out of the window?
Really no lighting that's gonna, no.
Okay,
Those
because
windows-
I have a building there already that the lighting there I've complained about and they haven't done nothing about. The street is covered, it looks like an airfield. I don't know if anybody here has ever been to an airfield before.
That's really
but
to
it's
let light into the
ridiculous.
building.
And, you know, I don't want the light from the back windows seeping into my yard like how, the problem that I have now, you know?
Okay.
It's very uncomfortable. So that's my question. Maybe, you know, they could take into, I see that you guys have taken everything into consideration. Maybe that's something that, because I'm not against this plan or nothing like that. I mean,
Okay.
it's good for the community and I'm all for it.
All right, thank you. Mr. Graviano?
I just wanted to indicate, Mr. Santana's property is in the top right corner of the site on the site plan, just so the board understood
Thank
where
you.
he's coming from.
Yeah, I have a tree, humongous Norwegian tree that's branching.
He's got to speak into the microphone.
I'm sorry, you have to go back up to the mic.
I also have a tree, a big, beautiful tree that branches maybe 8 or 9 feet into where that property is at too. So I'm not sure, you know, how you guys want to go about it. I don't really want to make that tree, chop it up like that. You know,
Okay.
it's pretty, it's nice, but you know, it does need some pruning. But I mean, I don't know how much pruning you know.
All right, we'll find out from the engineer. Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Romanek? Seeing none? Mr. Cohen?
Chairman.
Commissioner Jaskell?
Who do we address questions to on the actual usage of the building?
I would assume it would be Mr. Beam.
Okay.
Mr. Cohen, that's okay. Why don't we do this? I know what he's trying to do. You're trying to maybe make the building smaller or whatever, but.
We're good.
Why don't we do testimony on the owner, what he plans on using the building for, stuff like that? Because you're going to wind up coming back with revised drawings anyway.
Whatever you want to do. I'm good. I have the number, I have a sketch.
Because you're definitely going to have to come back with revised drawings no matter what. Okay?
Well, why don't we get the testimony and...
Because if we know what the building is doing and what you're doing in the building and how you're going to use it, and we can get that testimony out of the way, and then we can just concentrate on the changes on the plan.
No problem. Mr. Bean, you're under oath. You are the owner of the property as an officer of Walbury, correct?
That's correct.
And currently, this lot is a vacant lot, is that correct?
Mr. Cohen, can I get him the
Oh, yes.
mic?
Yes.
Okay. What is it that you're proposing to put there?
We're putting up a flex space industrial building. Flex in that while it's approximately a 7,500-foot building, it'll have 3 units on it. The size of those units could vary slightly. There will not be a loading dock or tractor trailer on the property, and for that reason, we need to break it up into smaller units. The property does not accommodate a tractor trailer and a loading dock. So we'll have 3 small units, and they will be used for storage or for light assembly or for some minor lightweight industrial purpose. Typically, we would hope to get people who are like construction people, such as an electrical contractor or a plumbing contractor, or a small storage person who stores small goods, foodstuffs or hardware or windows or that kind of thing. There could be some light processing, but nothing heavy. We have no idea who those people will be. It's a spec building, but we'll find people to use it.
You have some experience in warehousing, is that correct?
Yes, we own a large industrial property in this vicinity, right down the street from here. We have about 500,000 square feet of industrial property there.
Okay, and this is something in line with the business that you actually do, and you're familiar with this, and you would know how to operate this, is that correct?
I think I do.
Okay, the plan is not to have these large trucks come in, but certain of limited size where they would be able to access the warehouse, put their materials in, and then leave. Is that correct?
That's correct. I think a property this size does not accommodate large trucks.
Okay. And we've designed it in a method where trucks could come in, back into these areas, unload, and then leave. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's been designed for vans and box trucks. So very specifically, our engineer designed the access way so that it would accommodate box trucks at the maximum.
Okay. Hours of operation generally?
Typical hours, of course, I don't know, but typical would be 8 a.m. to 4 or 5 p.m.
Okay, and with regard to employees that are actually going to be working there, any employees?
Couple employees, each operator there, each premises, the operator will probably have 1, 2, 3 employees.
Okay.
More likely 1 or 2.
Right, okay. You understand that this particular area in the M2, you would be permitted to put an industrial plant. That's not your plan, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and one of the reasons you did that was because you are trying to better accommodate the residential use which is behind this particular lot. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay,
I think this fits the property.
Yeah, these residential properties back into use, so it's the back of those properties that are adjacent to your particular lots. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Any questions for the owner?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Fukas.
Mr. Bean, there's no refrigeration or anything, they're too small, right? Any of the units?
We're not building it with refrigeration.
Okay, that's all.
But it happens that I have a building which is refrigerated elsewhere, in Clifton, actually. And that's actually a very easy use, very quiet, easy, and...
Yeah, but we're not doing that here.
But
so
we're not,
we don't-
we're not planning on doing it.
No. So we don't, okay. Yes, I'm sorry.
Any other questions for the owner?
Okay. I don't know if the
Interested party, would you have a question for the owner, please? Just state your name again. And
Carlos Manuel Santana. This is, I want to thank Mr. Bean for his work over there at 61 Willett. He don't know, but I used to deliver his mail, also his lawyer there. I was a post office mailman in Passaic, so I'm familiar with 61 Willett and that little general area there. I'm not against the project. He's going to bring good work. I have a kid. He can go right around the back, get a job there. So that's great for me. I got, other people, other kids in the community that might need work from Passaic and the area. He's gonna get job, electrician jobs, air conditioning maybe, who knows? But it sounds like a great idea. I'm not the only one that has a say in this because I'm not the one that's gonna be directly behind that building, so the other properties are there. So my property is only a little small property. I don't know what the back of the building is like. The right side of the building has 3 doors I saw.
Mr. Santiago, the only thing Santana, sorry. You can ask him on his testimony, but if you want to make any statements or anything like that, I will let you do it at the end. But right now, I just need you to ask questions of the owner on his testimony. So I just want to remind you of that. If you're getting off, talking about, that's fine. You can talk about it at the end.
So the vehicles that you're going to bring in to load, I have a problem with the vehicles that are there now loading trucks. They make too much noise. When they reverse, they do this beep, 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 beep sound. Now, I know that I've done research on this. They have trucks now for situations with residential areas where they tone them down so they don't make that sound when they're reversing, because I know it's for safety, it's necessary. But if you can maybe have the truck drivers that you get there have that kind of system on there, so when they reverse in there or anything, they're not making that loud noise. As I got it on my phone. I'm in my living room, laying on my couch, and if I could play it right here, right now, and you can hear the backing of these trucks. And I have tinnitus from combat.
I need to remind you to phrase it as a question.
Oh yeah. So as a question, I would like to know if you're willing to go as far as that to accommodate the noise and the light discipline and everything that's going to be better for us, for our environment.
So I think once the building is built, that will be a tremendous sound buffer between you and any vehicles there.
Yes.
Building is going to be a masonry building, and the trucks that pull in will be on the other side of the building from you.
Yes.
That is, the building will be between you and those trucks. So
No, I'm just asking because also it's not just accommodate myself, but also
but all the residents behind the building.
Yeah, but that's
So
all. That's one of my concerns, and that's it.
The building will block the sound from all of those residents.
If that's
And
the case, that's great.
there will not be a lot of traffic either. It's a small building, and we'll have occasional trucks coming in and out, but there will not be a lot of traffic, very limited amount.
Then that's fine. That's it.
Okay. Mr. Joe Vince, please, I'd like to call, if he's ready. Mr. Vince, go ahead.
I've never been here. I have a Bachelor of Science degree from Fairleigh Dickinson University in Civil Engineering Technology. Also have a Bachelor of Science degree from NJIT in Land Surveying. I've been practicing in the fields of engineering, land surveying, and planning since 2005. I'm licensed in all 3 professions. I've been for numerous boards, represent a few in Bergen County, and been in front of Superior Court. Thank you. So I guess I don't want to repeat too much what the architect said, but this property is in the M2 zone. Currently, it consists of really 2 lots, although it's 3, but one lot is a tax lot because it's in Passaic. So there were 2 properties. One property was 10,000 square feet, the other one was 5,000 square feet. As part of this project, we're going to merge all the properties. So the total property is 15,000 square feet, although there's still another 1 to 2,000 square feet in Passaic that'll remain the tax lot. The lot is rectangular, it's 150 feet wide by 100 feet deep. It exceeds the minimum lot dimensions and the lot area once we combine the properties. The lot slopes from the rear to the front at approximately 3 to 6%. It changes a little bit depending on where you are on the property. There were previous developments on this property. Right now it's vacant. However, there was a restaurant building that was knocked down. The restaurant building was on the bigger 10,000 square foot lot, and it was really close to the road. It really no setback onto Walnut Street. Similar location to where the proposed building is being, or where the proposed building is located. On the smaller lot, Lot 9, there used to be a residential home. That's a non-conforming use in the zone. That house has been gone, and there used to be an accessory structure right at the rear of the property, up against the retaining wall, similar setback to the building that's shown on the plans. We did take your comments into consideration. We can revise our building. I actually did mark this up, and I can mark it as an exhibit. I don't know what we're at. Is A2?
A2.
A2.
16.
Can you identify the site again?
Yes. Well, I marked this up on the grading and demolition, grading and utility plan, 3-7 Walnut Street, 9-11 Walnut Street, Block 37.04, lots 9 and 13, City of Clifton. Block 3245.03, Lot 10, City of Passaic. This was sheet 2 of 5. That was in everyone's site plan set, although I did mark the revisions up in blue. And I know you wanted revised plans to come back, but I did calculate everything, and this is exactly what we would propose. We could set the rear line of the building at 10 feet off the property line. So that would increase and give us a 6-foot separation between the retaining wall and the building. In that location, we would be able to plant 8 green giant arborvitaes. They would get to approximately 20 feet tall and would buffer the rear of that building. In addition, we would also then bump the front of this building out to 6 feet that we would be losing. The building would be changing from 7,442 square feet to 6,998 square feet. And the lot coverage calculation, when I deduct out the Passaic lot and just use the lot that's within Clifton, the lot coverage would change to 50.2%.
Mr. Vince, just looking at what you drew,
Yes.
I'm not an architect, I'm just looking at this plan. You have, if you're taking another 6 feet and you're making it 10 feet, that sliver with the overhead, with that little building sticking out that way,
Yes.
why couldn't the building just be straight? Straight?
That's a question for Mr. Bean.
Okay, if the building was straight, 1, 2, he has, the first one is 26.6 for space number 1, right? It's 26.6 feet from when I was reading on the architect's plans.
Square feet?
Yeah, not square foot, 26.6 feet long, I should say, the first one.
Oh, okay, okay.
You got what I'm saying?
Yep.
Second one, same thing, 26.6 feet. The third one is 40 feet.
Okay.
If you made that 26.6 feet, just saying, I'm just looking at it, that leaves 13 feet. 13 feet plus the 4 feet that you have in the buffer, that would be 17 feet. And then they would have 3 exact same size units without that sticking out, and then you can have all your overhead doors on the side, and they can pull in and back up into the overhead. And we give them a buffer, we get planting in there, and you still get a nice building, a nice sized building. And it would look clean and neat. That's just, my opinion. I'm not an architect, but this is just my opinion looking at it.
How many square foot would the building be?
And that's why I said if you come back with revised plans, think about it. Think about some of the comments, but you're taking that 6 feet away, and you still got the little notch there with an overhead, you can't pull in with a van in that area now. That's like 10 feet. What are you gonna pull in? The van's not gonna go in 10 feet.
Through the chair.
Mr. Graviano.
I like that idea, and on that end, the applicant has 52 feet from the edge of the parking spots to the front of that shorter part of the building. Maybe you could gain some additional space that you lost in the back up front.
Right. I just think, I know you're trying to get a little bit more, of a building, but that little jog out does nothing for me.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Soshan.
are you going to do anything with the side yard setback too? Because it only has 4-foot walkway?
No, the side yard setback, we were proposing to remain because this is a parking lot associated with there's a 4-family house next to us to the north.
Yeah, that's an open lot.
It's an open lot. It's used for parking.
I'm not sure, do you understand
I don't fully understand, but Mr. Bean has to answer.
Let me
the
just
question.
make,
It's his building.
so the chairman was saying to make 3 units at 26 feet apiece. I was saying you could make up for some of that lost space by adding additional space to the front, because you have 52 feet between the building and the parking spot.
Oh, well, I could answer the 52 feet. I actually had that conversation with Mr. Bean. Originally, it was further out towards the south, and if we put a turning template on there, the truck turns straight, and a box truck is just finally straight to get in the door at 52 feet. So the 52-foot dimension, that's a result of a turning template. So
So then that would be ideal to get rid of that little that niche that's sticking out, that little part of the building, make that straight, and then a box truck can do all 3 buildings.
Right. Well, that's why that was there, is because actually that space had no impact at all on the box truck, because the box truck pulls straight up, and the length of that building is where the truck is straight. So by the time it turns, that it's clear of that space.
It will miss that on the turning radius because.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now that you're shorting making the building shorter.
Right, but it would still make the turn because that length was designed that way.
Listen, I'm not here to deal with you. I'm not here to make deals with you. I'm just telling you that my opinion is you need a bigger buffer there. Put some trees in there. We all, I think, agree that it needs to be redeveloped. There's no doubt. Even the interested party agrees that it needs to be redeveloped. It's just give us something that's good to vote on here, to do something. Give us buffer where the residential homes are. Yeah, I'm not worried about the buffer on the right-hand side, the 4-foot buffer. That's okay. It's a parking lot. I have no problem with that, me personally. But the backyards, you need a buffer. You need a bigger buffer. And if you square off the building or make it a rectangle and make it a little shorter, get 3 even buildings and you're done.
I understand what you're saying.
And then come back with revised plans, and we'll go from there. I'm sure, Ms. Boccato, we can put them on in January if it takes a little time, and we can get revised plans, and we go from there.
We appreciate the comments of the board. We will be back. Let's just get a new
Okay, so
date,
can
and
we
we'll
get a
go
date?
back.
January 18th, can we put them on? Is that the second meeting in January? Is that January 18th okay, Mr. Cohen?
January 18th, fine.
Okay, so there'll be no further notice. We'll hear this application on January 18th of
Thank you.
2023. Okay?
Thank you very much, members.
Have a good
Thank
evening.
you. Thank you, the board.
Thank you. Okay, next application. 833 Clifton Avenue Partners LLC, 833 Clifton Avenue. Please come forward. Any interested parties to this application, please come in and sign in. Rhonda, if you can give her a pad, please.
Right here. And I want to grab that mic over there.
You're going to be using this. Yeah. Mhm. No.
Okay. Appearance of counsel for the record.
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Glenn Peterson, 1037 Route 46 East, Suite 105, Clifton, New Jersey, representing the applicant, 833 Clifton Ave Partners, LLC.
Okay, and how many witnesses this evening? I know we're only going to try, I'm going to give you as much time as I can, but probably about a half hour is the most I'm going to give you, and then we'll have to continue this, but I just want to get it started.
Understood.
Okay?
I have witnesses who need to be sworn.
All right, why don't we get
Okay,
name and address?
state's name and address for the record, please. Each of you rise, and then I'll swear you in.
Okay, William J. Martin, architect, professional planner. I'm appearing in my capacity as a licensed professional planner, 25 Boulevard, Westwood, New Jersey, 07675.
Mike Capo, architect, 1037 Route 46, Suite G5, Clifton, New Jersey.
Thomas Donahue, Donahue Engineering, 210 Summit Avenue, Montvale, New Jersey.
If you can please stand, Mr. Pocola. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, one more.
Drew Marisi, 31 Lord Sterling Drive in Morristown, New Jersey.
Please.
In this matter pending before the Zoning Board of Adjustment in the city of Clifton, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. Thank you.
Please be seated.
Mr. Chairman, the property is located at 833 Clifton Avenue. It's block 35.07, lot 1. The applicant seeking preliminary and final site plan approval and C&D variances to construct a 3-story residential building. The applicant adjourned this application from the November 2 hearing evening in order to modify the application to reduce the number of units, the requested number of units, from 26 one-bedroom apartments to 24 one-bedroom apartments, and also reduce the size of the building. Mr. Maurice, you're a member of the LLC that is the applicant in this matter, correct?
That is correct.
And the original plans reflected a row of bushes between the proposed building and the adjacent one-family home, correct?
That's correct.
And it did not reflect any sort of a fence. Have the plans changed since then?
Yes, the owner of 8 Cloverdale, which is the property that is directly next to the site, requested that we put up a 6-foot fence on the side of the bushes that's closest to her house to avoid people from potentially looking down into her property. We also cut the units back by her unit to avoid people potentially looking out of their windows down into her backyard. These changes were satisfactory to her, which is why she is not here this evening.
And in fact, she's not voicing any objection to the application, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And the two units that were taken away from the proposal are the ones that were closest to her single-family dwelling.
Correct. Her lot is the contiguous lot that our property surrounds on 2 sides.
Okay. I have nothing further for this witness.
Any questions from the board? So just so I can get it straight, he's the owner,
One of the members of the LLC, correct?
okay. I want to make sure I'm questioning the right person. Okay. Anybody have any questions?
Call Mr. Capo.
You know what, before I go any more, interested parties, do you have any questions for the owner? You didn't give a long testimony, but if you have any questions for him? No? Okay. All right, Mr. Peterson.
Michael Capo. He's been sworn. Will you accept his qualifications? I know he just qualified
Let's accept
earlier
the
this evening.
qualifications, and all three of them will accept their qualifications.
Thank you.
Mr. Capo, you were the architect on this project, correct?
Yes.
And you designed the applicant's proposed building?
Yes.
Please describe what's being proposed.
What's being proposed is a 3-story building, parking on the first floor and apartments on the second and third floors. Each floor will have approximately 12 apartments. Each apartment will consist of 1 bedroom, a kitchen, a bathroom, a laundry area, and a space for a small heating unit. There are 2 egress stairs on either side of the building and a main elevator lobby in the center of the building. The exterior is going to be 2 differentiating color bricks, tall windows, aluminum canopies, and precast concrete, like I maybe use EIFS accents over the windows and on some of the piers. In addition, there'll be a utility room on the very lower level adjacent to one of the stairs where we can put any kind of utilities like gas, electric, panels, and things like that. All the exterior elevations will be similar to the rendering that you see. So that's just a 2D version of the front elevation. Can't get it. Side elevation tower will be a differentiating color, and the aluminum stripes will be wrapping around the whole building on the sides, and the rear will have a similar architectural language also. And this just depicts that row of trees that Tom will be explaining towards the rear that buffers that that neighbor's property. And that's the extent of it, basically. Each apartment is going to be roughly 600 square feet, maybe a little less. I'm going to have 1 handicapped accessible unit on each floor, probably units 1, respectively, back here on each floor. And yeah, that's the scope.
And there won't be any signage on the property, correct?
Yeah, there will be 1 building number, which I was going to put.
But other than that, no other signage, correct?
No signage.
And the washer and dryers will be in the units themselves?
Yes.
And it is also, where the mechanicals are going to go where?
Mechanicals, we were going to put on the roof, surrounded by acoustical rooftop screen to shield them from view.
Okay. And is the applicant also considering solar panels for the roof, too?
Yes, on a portion of them.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Any questions for the architect?
Through you, Chairman.
Vice Chairman Scorziello.
If I'm not mistaken, just from driving past many times, seems like there's an elevation change. I don't know if that's accurate.
Yeah, there's an elevation change, and I believe it's going to be regraded. Yeah.
I mean, that looks pretty flat right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner DeStefano.
It's a nice rendering. Just go over again, so the air conditioning, everything will be on the top unit?
Yeah, on the roof. Yeah.
Okay, and the lighting is on those posts?
Oh, those aren't lights. They're just going to be accents, like stucco.
Where's the outside lighting going to be?
Primarily under the building and under the canopy at the elevator.
Okay, nothing on each side or in the front? Any lighting there?
Yeah, there will be.
Okay, and you're looking for LED lighting? That'll be the 2700 Kelvin, that you'll conform to that, the LED?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the board?
Mike, I mean, curious,
Commissioner Fukas.
you're putting mechanicals on a flat roof, I guarantee you're gonna get a leak. I'm just telling you.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll have a roofing warranty that prevents that.
Mr. Capo, you made the drawings. Was it from the owner, or they told you how many units they wanted, and you made the drawing on that basis?
Yes.
Okay, I have no questions more for this. Anybody else have any questions for him? Interested parties, you have any questions for the architect? Yes. Okay, I need you to come up to the mic, state your name and address to the record. And again, it's just the architect on his testimony. If you would like to make a statement, you will be allowed to make a statement on the end, a closing statement. State your name and address for the record.
Yes, William Montesano, 21 Cloverdale Road.
Okay, I need to swear you in, Mr. Pogarelli.
In this matter pending before the Zoning Board of Adjustment in the city of Clifton, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay, again, questions just on the architect, on his drawings, on his testimony, and if you want to make a statement, I'll allow you to make it at another time.
Well, what we're concerned about is water runoff, how that's going to be handled.
Engineer?
Maybe that question will be for the engineer.
Is that,
Okay. I'll have that question for the engineer. When the engineer gives testimony, we'll ask that. Okay. Do you have a question for the architect? Anything about the building, the
Yes.
side of the building, look at the building? I just need your name and address to the record too, please.
Lorraine Montesano, 21 Cloverdale Road.
Mr. Pogarelli, can you swear her in too, please?
Please raise your right hand. In this matter pending before the Zoning Board of Adjustment in the city of Clifton, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'd like to know how many parking spaces are on the plan.
I would believe that we'd have the engineer also answer that question for you too, okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Mr. Peterson?
Mr. Donahue? Now, again, for the record, you accepted his credentials as an
We'll accept
expert
his
in
file.
earlier?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. The plans I'll be discussing tonight consist of 11 sheets. They're last revised November 2nd, 2022. The property is located at Lot 1, Block 3507, known as 833 Clifton Avenue. It's at the corner of Clifton Avenue and Cloverdale Road. The property is located in the BC zone. To the west is the railroad. North is an office use building. To the east is a commercial building. And to the south is a commercial and also residential properties. Looking at sheet 2, entitled Existing Conditions Demolition, the property contains a large asphalt parking lot, which takes up most of the lot. There's a lawn area towards the frontage of Clifton Avenue and a wooded area towards the south side. There's also an existing 5-foot-high concrete retaining wall, which borders Lot 2, the adjacent lot, residential lot, to the east. The property slopes from the intersection of Clifton Avenue and Cloverdale Road to the south, and all sheet flow water runoff drains to more or less the railroad right-of-way. So the applicant is proposing to remove the existing asphalt parking lot, the concrete retaining wall, the treed areas, and lawn areas, and to construct the 3-story apartment building, which would contain 24 one-bedroom apartments, which would have parking on the first floor. Variances for the parking, for the building setback is 1.2 feet for the rear yard. The rear yard is considered the railroad property, and a side yard variance for side yard of 4.5 where 10 feet is required for the side yard variance. Additionally, lot coverage variance, 25% is maximum, and the applicant is proposing 35% for the building as indicated. Parking requirements for this property, RSIS requires 1.8 parking spaces for a one-bedroom apartment, which requires 43 parking spaces. The applicant's proposing to install 7 EV spaces. That would provide a reduction of 4 spaces, requiring 39 parking spaces, and the applicant is proposing 41 parking spaces. Access egress to the property would be from 2 25-foot wide driveways, one on Clifton Avenue and the other one on Cloverdale Road. The applicant is proposing 9 by 18 parking space size, where that's a variance from the zoning code, but it complies with the RSIS standards. Additionally, parking in the front yard is not permitted, so a variance is required for that. Parking space setback, 10 feet is required, and the applicant's proposing 1.3 feet towards the south corner of the parking lot. There's also no additional interior landscaped islands. However, the applicant is proposing landscaping surrounding the entire parking lot area, which I'll get to when I get to that plan. The applicant's proposing 2 ADA parking spaces, which would be adjacent to the elevator in the middle of the building, as indicated. They are also proposing a bike rack to be installed underneath the building on a sidewalk area for anyone using bicycles. There are 5 tandem parking spaces proposed, which would allow residents to have numbered parking spaces, so those parking spaces would be assigned to individual residents. There's a dumpster out front, dumpster enclosure on Clifton Avenue that has a brick facade as indicated on the detail, so that would match more or less the building facade area. As I mentioned, the existing concrete retaining wall will be removed and a new concrete retaining wall would be constructed from 7 to 11 feet in height. Adjacent to the residential use property, lot 2, a 6-foot-high PVC white fence would be installed on top of the retaining wall. The retaining wall would continue around the building and the property up through and along the railroad. That would support the proposed parking lot and building area. New curbing would be installed throughout the proposed parking lot, concrete curbs and asphalt parking. Sidewalks would be installed adjacent to the proposed driveways, both on Cloverdale and on Clifton Avenue. Sheet 4 of 10 is the grading and utility plan. There will be a new water line and sewer line installed to service the building. Those would connect out to the existing utilities out in the street. The proposed asphalt parking lot area would discharge overland flow to a new collection system for stormwater. The stormwater would pick up a number of inlets and then discharged to an underground infiltration system, which is underneath the building. That would discharge to the ground soil below and have an overflow discharge off to the railroad right-of-way. Additionally, the roof leaders would be connected to the infiltration system. The basin is designed so that the peak flow is reduced to the pre-development flow for this project. Sheet 5 is the lighting plan. Lighting plan is a consistent of underground, lights that will be proposed in more or less the garage area, so that those lights are indicated on the top right-hand corner. So those lights will be in the garage area, and then building wall-mounted lights, which propose the lights to be directed directly down towards the pavement and not away from that. Those would be surrounding the outside of the building and attached on the building facade. This provides adequate lighting for the parking lot and also for the garage area. Sheet 6 is the landscaping plan, which indicates a number of shade trees to be planted surrounding the entire parking lot area. Along with that, there's evergreen trees, 8 feet in height, which would be planted adjacent to the residential use, and also additional evergreen shrubs to be planted between the building and the wall fenced area. The dumpster area would be surrounded with evergreen trees, and there's a number of smaller shrubs and lawn areas that would be planted throughout, as indicated on this plan. Next sheet is the soil erosion sediment control plan. This plan indicates measures which would be installed during construction to prevent runoff and to capture any sediment that would flow during construction onto adjacent properties. This plan would be sent to the local Soil Conservation District to be reviewed and certified. The next 3 plans sheets are construction details. These are the items that would be installed during construction. And the last sheet is truck movement plans. This indicates how a fire truck would enter the property from Clifton Avenue, park out front, and then exit through the same driveway. Additionally, the garbage truck movement is indicated, which would provide a motion to enter and exit, pick up the refuse, and then leave through Clifton Avenue. That is all the comments I have.
All right, the concerned citizen, first of all, questioned parking. In fact, we do not need a parking variance, correct? We satisfy the parking requirement.
Other than the parking size.
Correct.
9 by 18
I'm talking
versus
number of
9 by
vehicles,
20.
though.
Not the number, no, correct.
Okay, and the other...
Mr. Chairman,
I'm sorry, say that again? Commissioner Soshan, go ahead.
does Clifton allow tandem parking spaces to be
No,
counted?
they do not.
No. So there's 5 spaces that he's counting that shouldn't be counted.
That's correct.
Okay.
We frown upon tandem parking. And I thought on your plan it said 41 parking spots and 43 required. Mr. Peterson is saying about the size, but I think you're still short on parking, right?
Well, the EV space calculation, we can take a reduction.
Oh, on the EV.
Right, so there's 4 spaces that we can reduce the total overall requirement down to 39. So from 43 as required minus the 4 is 39, which is required, and we have 41 shown on the plan.
Because you're going to credit of the EV charging units, right?
Correct.
All right, Mr. Donahue, the other concerned citizen was concerned in terms of water runoff. Now, could you explain that any development, we can't increase the rate of water runoff that currently exists on the property, correct?
That is correct.
And in fact, you have done drainage calculations, which you submitted to the Neglia, the engineering consultant, correct?
Yes, we have.
And they've approved those calculations?
As far as I know, yes, they have.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Any questions for Mr. Donahue?
Yeah, Chairman,
Commissioner Jaskell?
can we get an accurate count of the parking places now that we don't do tandem parking?
If we take away the tandem parking spots, it's 3 more, right?
Mr. Chairman, it's 5.
Is it 5 or 3?
5.
It'd be 5.
5 taken off.
See, as a practical matter, what we would do is, for a given unit that has husband and wife, and they both might have a vehicle, they would be designated for that tandem parking.
We don't allow tandem parking. We've had it before us before and we've been denied.
Okay, then we're looking for a parking variance too, then.
You're going to be going for a parking variance. There you go. Any other questions for Mr. Donahue? Interested parties, do you have any questions for Mr. Donahue? You want to ask about the parking? You can now, or the drainage, or anything like that? Just state your name again for the record, please.
Our concern with the parking is on Cloverdale Road, as it is, we have Dunkin' Donuts on one corner, a professional building across the street. The kids and the students, when they become of age to drive every year, they park on the street, which that's their right, but there'll be no room for extra tenants if they don't have adequate parking. And as we're landlords on that street, and my tenants deserve to have a place to park.
And Mrs. Montesano, right now, I would just, do your questions for the Mr. Donahue. So you can ask him a parking question, but if you want to make a statement, I'll allow you to do that at the end.
Okay.
And phrase it in a question. Say,
Can you provide more parking?
There you go.
We can look at the site layout to see if there's more parking spaces that we can provide. With the reduction of the 5 parking spaces, we'll be down to 36 proposed, where 39 with the credit for the EV would be required. So we have a 3 parking space variance at this point.
Through the chair.
Mr. Graviano.
When you're looking at parking lot redesign, one of my concerns with the parking lot layout is that the pavement goes right to the sidewalk. I think we'd like to see a little bit of more landscaping between the parking lot and the sidewalk area.
We can look into that. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Molnar.
To Mr. Graviano, just a refresher, what's allowed in this zone where they're proposing this residential?
This is a commercial zone.
BC.
So your retail office type uses. Give me 1 second. It's in my review letter. Yes, business and professional offices, retail stores, service establishments, supermarkets, hotels and theaters, printing shops, parking lots and parking garages, vending machines, mortuaries, repairs of shoes, clothing, and small appliances is pretty much the gist of it.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Donahue? Mr. Peterson, I believe we're going to stop this evening. We've had a long night.
We appreciate taking the time that you have for us this evening.
I can only give you a word of advice. I can't tell you how the board's thinking, but in my opinion, go back to the drawing board. Come up with something that meets parking, maybe a smaller building, less units, but again, I can only speak for myself. I think this is an overuse of the property, but it's only me. It's only me. I can only speak for myself. But I would just recommend you come back, revise the plans, meet the parking, meet all the requirements that you need to meet, because you're looking to put a lot of units in here and you can't even meet parking. That's only my advice.
Appreciate you.
Ms. Bocato, when can we continue this?
Do you have a time frame for revision of plans? Are you thinking January? Are you thinking, I don't know how much time you need.
Maybe we would look for like February, the first meeting in February, because January is like flying by too.
Well, we'd be a continued hearing. I'd prefer as early in January as possible.
Yeah, I mean.
Well, I
We
mean,
could
if you
do
want
the
to try to
8th
put them on the 18th,
the
I don't
18th.
know, it's getting crowded.
They're not going to let us.
January
18th.
18?
You think you'd have enough time to revise plans at
Fine.
that time? Okay. All right. So there'll be no further notice. We'll hear this application on January 18th, 2023. Okay? Interested parties? All right. Have a good evening. The board will move on to resolutions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am? January 18th? You will not be here January 18th? Mr. Pogorelic, we did the Stu Leonard's already, didn't we? The resolution on that, or no?
No, we did not.
Okay, thank you. Okay, application of Stu Leonard's, 467 Allwood Road, Block 7901, Lot 1, granted preliminary and final site plan approval with associated C and D variances to operate a Stu Leonard supermarket.
So moved.
So moved by Vice Chairman Scorziello.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner DeStefano. Roll call, Mr. Pogorelic.
Commissioner Soshan,
Yes.
Commissioner Molnar,
Yes.
Commissioner DeStefano,
Yes.
Commissioner Fukas,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Scorziello,
Yes.
Chairman Zakino.
Yes.
The resolution has been adopted.
Application of Botany Village Property LLC, 254 Dayton Ave, granted preliminary and final site plan approval with associated D and C variances to construct a three-story building with 4 residential units on the second floor and a restaurant and bar in the basement and first floor.
So moved.
So moved by Vice Chairman Scorziello.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner DeStefano. Roll call, Mr. Pogorelic.
One moment, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, I'm sorry. Yeah, it took a while to find.
Commissioner Soshan,
Yes.
Commissioner Molnar,
Yes.
Commissioner DeStefano,
Yes.
Commissioner Fukas,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Scorziello,
Yes.
Chairman Zakino.
Yes.
The resolution has been adopted.
Jamie and Viviana Borga, 67 Humor Terrace, withdrawn without prejudice for a 6-foot-high solid fence along the perimeter of property.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Commissioner DeStefano.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Oshan. Roll call, Mr. Pogorelic.
Commissioner Soshan,
Yes.
Commissioner Molnar,
Yes.
Commissioner DeStefano,
Yes.
Commissioner Fukas,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Scorziello,
Yes.
Chairman Zakino.
Yes.
The resolution has been adopted.
Application of MJG Mara Realty, 42 Lakeview Ave, denied a use variance and bulk variance for a storage and distribution center for retail and wholesale of motor vehicle parts.
So moved.
So moved by Commissioner Molnar.
Second, Mr.
Second by Commissioner Fukas. Roll call, Mr. Pogorelic.
Commissioner Soshan,
Yes.
Commissioner Molnar,
Yes.
Commissioner Fukas,
Yes.
Chairman Zakino.
Yes.
The resolution has been adopted.
Fausto Ortega, 29 Abbey Lane, granted variance for a 5-foot-high solid fence along Grove Street side of the property.
So moved.
So moved by Vice Chairman Scorziello.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Seconded by Commissioner Fukas. Roll call, Mr. Pogorelic.
Commissioner Soshan,
Yes.
Commissioner Molnar,
Yes.
Commissioner DeStefano,
Yes.
Commissioner Fukas,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Scorziello,
Yes.
Chairman Zakino.
Yes.
The resolution has been adopted.
Application of Ligia Filione, 33 Clinton Avenue, granted side yard setback variance for a driveway on the right side of the home with 0-foot setback.
So moved.
So moved by Commissioner Soshan.
Second.
Seconded by Vice Chairman Scorziello. Roll call, Mr. Pogorelic.
Commissioner Soshan,
Yes.
Commissioner Molnar,
Yes.
Commissioner DeStefano,
Yes.
Commissioner Fukas,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Scorziello,
Yes.
Chairman Zakino.
Yes.
The resolution has been adopted.
Andrea and Jeffrey Holm, 10-12 Mount Washington Drive, granted a rear yard setback variance for proposed addition.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
So moved by Commissioner Fukas.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Soshan. Roll call, Mr. Pogorelic.
Commissioner Soshan.
Yes.
Commissioner Molnar.
Yes.
Commissioner DeStefano.
Yes.
Commissioner Fukas.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Scorziello.
Yes.
Chairman Zakino.
Yes.
The resolution has been adopted.
Alman Friedman, 462 South Parkway, granted variance for a side yard setback, rear yard setback to replace an existing shed.
So moved.
So moved by Commissioner Molnar.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Soshan. Roll call, Mr. Pogorelic.
Commissioner Soshan.
Yes.
Commissioner Molnar.
Yes.
Commissioner DeStefano.
Yes.
Commissioner Fukas.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Scorziello.
Yes.
Chairman Zakino.
Yes.
The resolution has been adopted.
Abraham Ganuni, 145 Allwood Place, granted variances for rear yard setback, lot coverage, driveway not permitted in front of house, not serving a garage, or a two-story addition and conversion of a garage into living space.
So moved.
So moved by Commissioner Soshan, seconded by Vice Chairman Scorziello. Roll call, Mr. Pogorelic.
Commissioner Soshan.
Yes.
Commissioner Molnar.
Yes.
Commissioner DeStefano.
Yes.
Commissioner Fukas.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Scorziello.
Yes.
Chairman Zakino.
Yes.
The resolution has been adopted.
Application of Dawn Johnson, 119 William Street, granted variance for a right side yard, left side yard, and combined side yard setbacks to cover adequate
So
roof.
moved, Mr. Chair.
So moved by Commissioner Fukas.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Soshan. Roll call, Mr. Pogorelic.
Commissioner Soshan.
Yes.
Commissioner Molnar.
Yes.
Commissioner DeStefano.
Yes.
Commissioner Fukas.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Scorziello.
Yes.
Chairman Zakino.
Yes.
The resolution has been adopted.
Jasmita and Raul Kapoor, 18 Barberry Lane, granted variance for a left side yard, front yard setback, and front yard setback for a two-story addition, extension of existing attic, and a front porch addition.
So moved.
So moved by Commissioner
Second.
Soshan, second by Vice Chairman Scorziello. Roll call, Mr. Pogorelli.
Commissioner Soshan.
Yes.
Commissioner Molnar.
Yes.
Commissioner DeStefano.
Yes.
Commissioner Fukas.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Scorziello.
Yes.
Chairman Zakino.
Yes.
The resolution has been adopted.
Mike Goldberg, 25 Edgewood Ave, granted variance for a lot coverage, right side yard, combined side yard, and number of stories to erect a second floor addition.
So moved.
So moved by Commissioner Soshan.
Second.
Second by Vice Chairman Scorziello. Roll call, Mr. Pogorelli.
Commissioner Soshan.
Yes.
Commissioner Molnar.
Yes.
Commissioner DeStefano.
Yes.
Commissioner Fukas.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Scorziello.
Yes.
Chairman Zakino.
Yes.
The resolution has been adopted.
I get a motion to accept the minutes of the special meeting on October 26th.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
So moved by Commissioner
Second.
DeStefano, seconded by Commissioner Soshan. A motion to accept the minutes of November 2nd meeting.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Commissioner DeStefano,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Soshan.
Motion to adjourn, Mr.
Motion to adjourn by Commissioner Fukas. You have a second?
Second, Mr.
Second by
Chairman.
Commissioner DeStefano. Have a happy Thanksgiving, everyone.